2 years ago, I discovered my wife, Sandra, was having an affair that led to a vicious argument that ended with me packing my bags and moving out. Of course, my moving out wasn't due to the argument. I was moving out because I wasn't going to live with a cheating woman. Our marriage was over the second she let another man into her life. I checked into a motel near my office. It was kind of run down, but it would do until I found something more permanent. I put the 2 suitcases I had packed into my room and walked to a nearby neighborhood bar intent on getting drunk and drowning my sorrows. By walking, I wouldn't risk a DWI. The place I chose was pretty much empty due mainly to the fact it was a Tuesday night. There were 2 couples sitting at tables and one older man sitting at the bar nursing on a bottle of beer. I found a booth over on the far wall away from anyone else. I wasn't in the mood for conversation. The bored-looking waitress came over, and I ordered a shot of Jack and a beer. By the time I had finished my second round, I had had enough time to do a little thinking. I realized that I could either sit around feeling sorry for myself, or I could do what I normally do and meet this problem head-on. I was a home builder specializing in upscale homes, and it was at the height of the housing boom. I would always have 2 or 3 houses in progress at any one time, and when construction problems arose, I learned that it would cost me money if I didn't tackle them right away. With new resolve, I returned to the motel for a fitful night of sleep. The next morning, I went to the bank and moved all our money from our joint accounts into one in my name only in order to protect myself. Next, I canceled all our joint credit cards, keeping 2 that were in my name only and the ones that I had set up for my business. My final stop of the day was to my lawyer to draw up divorce papers. Barry was a friend of mine as well as my lawyer, and even though he specialized in real estate law, his wife, June, who was a lawyer, and his partner, dealt in family law. After they both told me how sorry they were at the circumstances I found myself in, we sat down to go over the details. I was given the usual spiel, telling me how this was a community property state and that Sandra was going to be entitled to half of everything and that I would be responsible for paying child support. I told them I was well aware of that, but there was no way I was going to change my mind and to proceed with the paperwork because of our daughter. I filed for dissolution on the grounds of irreconcilable differences rather than adultery. I had done well in my business, and even having to give her half would still leave me well off. I just wanted to rid myself of a faithless wife. I slept better that night, knowing that I was now taking charge of the situation. It was Thursday evening, the second full day after I had packed my bags and left, that I received a call from my daughter, Emma, who was 13 at the time, telling me that she had not seen or heard from her mother since she got home from school and she was all alone and hungry. Cursing my sunnabeaks, I jumped into my truck and headed home. I consoled my distraught daughter, then headed into the kitchen to fix her something to eat. It was under a magnet on the refrigerator that I saw an envelope with my name on it in my wife's handwriting. As curious as I was to see what was inside, I tossed it on the counter to read later and continued to make dinner for Emma. It was only after we had eaten and watched a little TV and I had put Emma to bed that I returned to the kitchen. I picked up the envelope and went into the den. I poured myself a shot of bourbon and downed it and sat down to read whatever was inside. It was a note from Sandra, in which she said that I was crazy if I thought I was going to saddle her with a child to raise. It went on to say that she was leaving and for me not to bother looking for her. To say I was stunned is an understatement. I realized I had never really known the woman I had married. I just could not understand how in the hell a mother could abandon her child. I went up to what had been our bedroom and saw that most of her clothes and personal items were gone. I waited until the next morning to call Barry and June to talk over this new development and find out how it was going to affect my attempt to divorce Sandra. June advised me to wait until Monday, and then she would accompany me to my wife's place of work. She would have the divorce papers drawn up, and we could have her served there. The hardest thing was sitting down with Emma to talk to her about what was going on. She already knew that her mother and I were having problems since I hadn't been home for the previous 2 nights. I decided that being honest with her was for the best, and I told her that her mother had left a note saying that she was leaving. Other than that, I really couldn't answer her questions about when she would come back, as I didn't know myself. We managed to get through the weekend, and Monday morning, I fed Emma her breakfast and dropped her off at school. I drove to Sandra's place of work, where I met up with June. Together, we went inside to inquire if my wife was there. At the mention of Sandra's name, we were directed to the Human Resources office, where we learned that she and her boss had both turned in their resignations the previous Wednesday. Somehow, I wasn't all that surprised, as I had found out that the man she had been having the affair with was her boss. Her boss was foolish enough to have a sexual relationship with an employee under his direction, but was smart enough to realize that when I made an issue of it, He was going to lose his job for breaking company policy against fraternization between a manager and an employee under their supervision. Once outside in the parking lot, June advised me that it would be in my best interest to file a missing persons report with the police, as she had been gone for over 48 hours. They would be obliged to take the report and, with any luck, find her. She followed me down to the police station, where a detective took my statement that Sandra was missing. I was honest with him and told him that the reason I wanted to find her was so I could have her served with divorce papers and the reason for the divorce. I showed him the note she had left and told him what we had learned about her and her lover quitting their jobs. He wanted to know if I had an alibi for the Wednesday she was last seen, and I assured him that I had spent the whole day at one of the houses I was building, and there were several contractors who could verify that. At the end, the cop told me that if they determined that there was no foul play involved and she had left of her own volition, there wasn't too much they could do. I then offered to buy June lunch, and we called her husband and met up at a nearby restaurant. We requested a table that was fairly private so we could talk. "So, June, what does this do as far as the divorce if we can't find her to have her served?" I asked. "What that means in this state is you are going to have to wait for a year before you can file on the grounds of abandonment." "I'm sorry, Mark, but that's what the law states," June answered. "The reason I wanted you to report her missing is so that we have an official report of when she left to document it. Other than that, if the police don't locate her, your only other option, if you want to pursue it, is to hire a private agency to try to track her down." "Well, I guess that gives me something to think about. I guess I'll wait until I hear from the police. Honestly, though, I don't know if I even want to know where she's gone, as I'm in no hurry to get married again, if ever. I guess waiting a year isn't that big of a deal as long as I don't have to deal with her." I could see the look of sympathy in June's eyes when I said I wasn't looking to get married again. She reached over and patted my hand. "Mark, I know how tough this is on you, and I know you're hurting right now, but as your friend, please promise me that you're not going to cut yourself off from life. For now, my focus is on Emma. I'm sure she is even more shocked and hurt than I am. I have to be there for her." Barry and June both nodded their understanding and told me they were both there for me and would help any way they could. After lunch, I went by one of my job sites and checked up on the progress and then went to Emma's school to wait for her to get out. As she exited the building, I saw her looking around almost frantically until she saw my truck, upon which she came running as fast as she could. I stepped out, and she flung herself into my arms. I could feel her shaking. "I was afraid you wouldn't be here," she sniffled into my neck, where she had buried her face. "Oh, baby, I promise I'm not going anywhere," I answered, hugging her tight to me. "Do you really promise?" she asked, staring at me with her big brown eyes shimmering with tears. "Yes, honey, I really promise." I kissed her forehead and carried her around to the passenger side of the truck and seatbelt her in. I again cursed my wife as I walked around to get in. With a little prodding, I finally got Emma to open up about her school day on the drive home. Once home, Emma wouldn't let me out of her sight. I continued to do my best to reassure her that I wasn't going to abandon her. Despite that, she began to have nightmares, and I would wait to hear her sobbing in her sleep. I would rush to her room, and when I would awaken her, she would throw her arms around me and hang on as if for dear life. When I asked her what she was dreaming about, she said that she was lost, and she couldn't find either her mother or me. The biggest saving grace I had at this time was my office manager. I had hired Gina to help me with the many mundane aspects of my work, such as filing for permits and arranging for inspections, so as to free me up to concentrate on the more demanding tasks. Since then, I had come to totally rely on her. She now worked to keep the subcontractors on schedule and ordering and tracking materials, as well as handling all the necessary paperwork. I might go several days without stopping in at the office, but I never worried about it, as I knew Gina was able to handle it. I had such trust in her that I even had her make out the checks to pay the subs or vendors. All I had to do was stop in on Friday and sign them, and then she would see to it they got delivered. When I had decided I needed help running my business, I had put out an ad in the local paper and had begun to interview people. I was getting discouraged with the respondents and couldn't find anyone who had the qualifications I felt were needed to handle the job. That was until Gina applied for the job. I still remember the day she walked in the door. Even though I was married, I still recognized a good-looking woman when I saw one. She stood only 54, but she had such lovely big brown eyes and a cute button of a nose. I judged her to be in her early 30s, and she obviously kept herself in shape by what I could see. She wore a blue business suit that, even though it wasn't revealing, did little to hide her trim figure. The interview went well, and I was impressed by her qualifications. She had worked for her father, who owned a construction company and was well-versed in the business. When I asked her why she no longer worked for him, she explained to me that her husband had been transferred here, so they had to move away. I also learned that she had a daughter the same age as my Emma, and now that she was in school, Gina wanted to return to the workforce. We reached an agreement on wages, and I had an office manager. Now, don't get the wrong idea, nothing ever happened between the two of us, not even flirting on my part. That was because I was married and took my vows seriously, and even if I wasn't married, she was. I have a firm rule that I never mess with another man's woman. For her part, it was obvious she loved her husband very, very much and wasn't the type of woman to mess around. I had let Gina know about what was going on with my marriage, and when I told her about the nightmares that Emma was having, she immediately suggested that I should put her in therapy. I quickly realized she was right, and together we found a therapist who was willing to work with us. I had chosen a woman therapist because I believed that it would put Emma more at ease, as she had always been extremely shy around men she didn't know. I met with Dr. Larson to tell her about all the things that had happened and why I felt it was necessary for her to see Emma. We set up a schedule to meet twice a week, and she let me know that it would be good if I were to be available, as she would want to see us together at times and just Emma alone at others. Another event that happened in the meantime was that the day after I had made a missing persons report, the police sent over a woman detective to talk to Emma. My daughter told them that the last time she had seen her mother was Friday morning before she left for school and that her mother had seemed distracted, but Emma hadn't been all that concerned at the time. It was a week later that I was asked to come down to the station and meet with the detective I had first talked with. He said their investigations had tracked her lover's credit card usage to 2 motels, and they had determined with the use of pictures that the two were together of their own free will. They had apparently left the state, and as there was no evidence of foul play, the police weren't going to pursue the case any further. The next 2 months passed, and the therapy seemed to be working for my daughter. I believe that she finally understood that it was in no way her fault that her mother had left, but more importantly, that I would always be there for her. The frequency of her nightmares had dropped off, and she no longer had to keep me in sight whenever we were together. Gina and her husband began to invite Emma and me to their house for barbecues. At first, I was hesitant to accept, but Gina convinced me that it would be good for Emma to spend time with her daughter doing normal girl things. I knew her husband, Rob, from having met him at different times, but I was a little concerned about how he would take his wife inviting a man, even if it were her boss, into their home. I quickly found that my worries were for nothing. He and I quickly bonded and became friends, and my Emma and their daughter, Lucy, also quickly bonded and became best friends. Not only that, but Gina, being a loving mother, made sure to spend time with both girls, giving Emma what I felt was much-needed motherly guidance. Sandra had been gone for 2.5 months with no word from her, and I decided it was time to rid my bedroom of the last vestiges of her former presence. Although she had apparently packed a lot of her clothes and personal effects, she had still left stuff behind. I brought a couple of large garbage bags up and started going through her drawers, emptying out her belongings. In the last drawer, which was mostly sweaters, I found a small box tucked into the back. Being curious, I opened it up and gasped when I saw what was inside. There was a baggie with at least 1/4 ounce of pot in it and a vial of white powder. Now, I wasn't naive about drugs in my younger days. Before I married Emma's mother, I had done some experimenting myself, but put that aside when I graduated college and got serious about life. I opened the vial and sniffed at it before taking a little powder on my finger and tentatively tasting it. Cocaine. The only other thing in there was a CD. I turned on my computer and put in the disc to see if there was anything on it that I could access. I saw that it contained a movie, so I opened it with the movie player and was surprised to see that it was obviously shot in the basement. I had built the house we lived in and had the basement set up with exercise equipment on one side, and the other was basically a game room with a pool table, plush couches, and a large screen TV. The scene showed 4 couples sitting or standing, most with drinks in their hands. 2 of those people were Sandra and her boss. I advanced the movie forward, and at this point, I saw people passing around joints while others were snorting lines of white powder off the glass top of the coffee table. Once again, I forwarded the movie, and this time it showed Sandra engaged in intimate acts with multiple partners. I have always had a strong sex drive, and occasionally watched some adult content when my wife was not receptive to my advances. I know there are men out there who get off on seeing their wives with other men, but I'm not one of those. All I felt was a great upheaval in my stomach, and I raced for the bathroom. I would like to say that I made it to the toilet, but alas, my vomit spewed forth across the floor. I did finish emptying my stomach in the toilet, and then sat there in a daze for a while. Finally, I pulled myself together and headed to get a mop to clean up the mess. On the way out, I saw the movie was still playing on my computer. Without looking at the screen, I quickly shut it down. After I had everything cleaned up, I called June. Hey June, it's Mark. Got time to talk? Mark, Barry and I always have time for you. What's up? She replied. Well, I decided to get rid of some of Sandra's stuff that is just taking up space, and in one of her drawers, I found a box with drugs and a CD. I was wondering if I should call the police and report the drugs. Honestly, I don't think that would be a good idea. The drugs are in your house, and if it came down to it, it would be your word against hers as to who they belong to. I really think you would be best off getting rid of them. Wow, I didn't really consider that, I said. How about the CD? I put it in my computer, and it's a movie of her and her friends doing drugs and having group activities. That woman had an orgy in my basement. Oh God, Mark, I'm sorry. I know that you would never have wanted to see that. However, since it was filmed in your home, it could be used as admissible evidence in court, especially if it came down to a matter of custody. I would suggest you hide it somewhere secure in case it's needed. That's what I was hoping you would say. I intend to try to do anything I can to keep her away from Emma. So, how are things really going? Rob asked me on our fourth visit to their house. The girls were out of earshot, busy preparing lunch inside. I guess things are as well as could be expected when you find out your wife is into drugs and group activities, I answered. What? Rob said, looking shocked. I went on to tell him about the CD and drugs I had found. I guess I never really knew her. The woman I thought I had married would never have done something like that. You don't know how lucky you are to have a woman like Gina. Actually, I do. Not a day goes by that I don't thank my lucky stars that she chose me to love. She's a beautiful woman, and I know guys hit on her, but I have always trusted her to do the right thing. Now if I could just get her boss to stop hitting on her, Rob said with a mischievous grin just as I was taking a drink. I couldn't help but splutter, spitting my drink down my front. My head swiveled to look at him. Jesus, Rob, you don't think I would ever make a pass at Gina? I choked out. Then I noticed the twinkle in his eyes, and he burst out laughing. Relax, buddy. Gina tells me everything about your relationship. That's why she enjoys working for you so much. You treat her with total respect, and she knows you'd never do anything to abuse her trust. I grinned back at him. Yeah, well, it's a rule I've always lived by. Not only have I never made a play for a married woman, but I won't even make one if I know the woman has a boyfriend. If you were able to take a woman away from the man she was with, how could you ever trust her not to do the same thing with the next guy that came along? That's even more true now that it's happened to me. One other thing that happened as a result of finding the disc was that at the meeting with the therapist following my discovery, Dr. Larson could tell that something dramatic had happened. She asked to see me the following day without Emma. I must say, Dr. Larson knew her business. It didn't take her long to ferret out of me what had happened, and the next thing I knew, I was having onion sessions with her. It took a couple of months for her to help me realize I had been suppressing many of my true feelings, and another couple of months to help me come to terms with them and deal with it. In the end, she truly helped both Emma and me to get past this ordeal. When a year had gone by, June filed my petition for divorce. We had no reason to present the CD movie, as Sandra's desertion of her family and failure to make any contact with her daughter or me was sufficient justifiable cause for the court to grant the divorce and give me sole custody of my daughter. I still kept the movie hidden away as insurance in case Sandra ever did return and filed for custody. Just when things seemed to have settled out for everyone, the next tragedy struck our lives. Rob was an avid cyclist and even rode in amateur races. During a race, there was a pileup, and Rob suffered a deep thigh bruise. What no one knew at the time was that he had developed a blood clot, which later broke loose and lodged in his brain, causing a massive stroke. When it happened, we were at work. I was sitting in my office reviewing the plans for a new house I was getting ready to build when the phone call came. I heard Gina answer the phone, and suddenly I heard her cry out. I rushed to her side, and she had a frantic look as she stared at me. It's Rob, they've rushed him to the hospital, she blurted out as she stood and grabbed her purse. She started to run out of the office, and I chased after her. Come on, get in my truck, I'll drive, I said when I caught up with her. At first, she gave me a blank stare, then nodded and let me lead her. I put her in the passenger side and hurried to get behind the wheel. Except for telling me which hospital, she never said another word for the rest of the ride. Whenever I glanced over at her, I could see her shaking with worry. When we reached the hospital, I pulled up in front of the emergency entrance, and she leapt from the truck and rushed in. I quickly found a parking spot and ran back to the doors. When I went inside, I saw that Gina had already inquired about Rob, and she was clearly distraught. I went to her, and she looked at me, telling me that the doctors were working on him but didn't know anything yet. I put my arm around her and led her over to the waiting area to sit with her. After half an hour, I realized it was getting close to time to pick up our daughters at school. Not wanting to leave Gina alone, I called June and gave her a brief rundown of what was happening, asking if she could pick up the girls from school and bring them to the hospital. She assured me she would. I then called the school to have the girls ready for pickup. June called just before they arrived, and I told Gina they were here. I went out to meet them and asked June to take Emma with her and keep Gina company while I talked with Lucy. I took Lucy to a quiet spot and gently told her that her father had been brought to the hospital and was in the emergency room with the doctors. I let her know that it was apparently serious, but we would have to wait to hear more from the doctors to know the extent. Lucy tried her best to put on a brave face and followed me back to the waiting room. I thanked June for her help, and before she left, I promised to call her if we needed any more help. For the next half hour, we sat in silence, me hugging Emma and Gina holding Lucy. Finally, a nurse came out, asked us to follow her, and led us to a private sitting room. Soon, a doctor joined us. The news was grim. Although Rob was still alive, he was being kept that way by life support. Gina collapsed in tears, and I held her in my arms as she sobbed. We continued to wait until they had Rob placed in the ICU, and then Gina and Lucy were allowed to see him. After some time, Gina and Lucy came back out. "Mark, would you look after Lucy for me?" "I'm going to stay here," Gina asked me. Lucy started to protest, so I knelt in front of her. "Sweetie, you need to be strong for your mom right now. You come home with Emma and me, and he'll bring you back in the morning. If anything happens, your mom will call us, okay?" With tears falling from her eyes, Lucy nodded. She hugged her mother and then went to hold hands with Emma. I gave Gina a hug and told her to call me if anything changed and that I would see her in the morning. That evening was tough. Both girls hardly ate anything and were quiet, barely speaking. I got them to bed and then turned in myself, but sleep was hard to come by. The next morning, I woke the girls and had to practically force them to eat breakfast. When I told Emma I was going to drop her off at school, she almost had a meltdown. I took her aside, away from Lucy. "Honey, please listen to me right now. Lucy needs to be with her mom, and the time will come when she will need you too. Okay?" "All right, Dad. I understand," she replied, though it was clear she wasn't happy about it. "That's my girl," I said, giving her a hug. After dropping Emma off, I took Lucy to her house. She used her key to let us in, and I had her pack her mother some fresh clothes and anything else she felt her mom might need. When we arrived at the room Rob was in, we found Gina asleep in a chair beside his bed. I set down the overnight bag we had brought, and Lucy and I went back out to the waiting room so her mom could sleep. About an hour and a half later, a haggard-looking Gina came out looking for us. Lucy and I hugged her, and then I led her to the cafeteria and bought her some breakfast. It took a bit of prodding to get her to eat, but her lack of appetite was understandable. When she was finished, I went to the nurse's desk on the floor and asked if there was somewhere Gina could shower and change. The nurse, sympathetic under the circumstances, led her to the locker room. Gina returned looking somewhat better. The rest of the day was spent with Gina and Lucy taking turns sitting with Rob, while I stayed in the waiting area consoling Lucy when she was not in there. The doctors came back a little after noon to run another battery of tests. The prognosis was not good. When it was time for school to let out, I went and picked up Emma, and we returned to the hospital until late evening, when I took the girls home. It was 5:30 in the morning when my phone rang. I knew what it was before I even answered it. I answered the call and heard Gina's voice, strained with sorrow. "Mark, Rob passed away." The pain in her voice was palpable, and I could only tell her how sorry I was and that the girls and I would be there as soon as possible. I quickly dressed and made my way to Emma's bedroom. The girls were asleep in her bed, and I gently woke Emma, putting a finger to my lips before she could speak, and beckoned her to follow me. Once in the hallway, I whispered, "Honey, Lucy's dad passed away, and Gina needs us there now. I need you to help Lucy get ready. She's going to need your support." Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded, accepting the responsibility. "I'll help her, Dad." I then went to wake Lucy, and as difficult as it was, I gently told her the news. She broke down sobbing, and I held her in my arms for several minutes. With Emma's help, she was soon dressed, and we were on our way to the hospital. When we arrived, it was heartbreaking to watch mother and daughter in a tearful embrace as they shared their grief. Emma clung to me, crying as well. She, too, knew what it was like to lose a parent. After some time, I left the girls with Gina and Lucy, and I went to find the hospital administrators to inform them that a funeral home would contact them as soon as Gina and Lucy had chosen one. Then, I gently led Gina and Lucy out to the car and drove them home. Once there, I settled them into the den and asked Gina what phone calls needed to be made. She gave me a list, including her parents and Rob's brother. Like me, Rob's parents had already passed, and his brother was his only immediate family. I also called Barry and June. At my recommendation, Gina and Rob had chosen to use June as their family lawyer, and they both came over right away. June stayed with Gina while I made the phone calls, including arranging with a funeral home to take charge of Rob's remains. The toll of her loss and the lack of sleep finally overcame Gina, and with June's help, she was put to bed. Afterward, I spoke with June, who told me she would handle the estate matters pro bono and that she had a copy of Rob's will. She also let me know that Rob had purchased 2 burial plots for himself and Gina. I thanked Barry and June for their help, and when they had left, I set about fixing lunch for the girls. The rest of the day was quiet, punctuated by bouts of tears from both Lucy and Emma. The emotional toll soon overcame both girls, and as soon as dinner was over, they turned in. Lucy didn't want to sleep alone, so once more, both girls slept in the same bed. I decided to stay in the guest room, and after I had locked up for the night, I, too, felt the drain of energy and went to bed. Exhausted, I slept through the night. I awoke around 6 a.m. and quickly dressed, but as I left my room, the smell of coffee greeted me. I walked to the kitchen and found Gina sitting at the table, her face lined with exhaustion and grief. "Steve, I didn't realize you were still here," she said softly. "Well, Lucy wanted Emma to stay with her, so I decided to stay in your guest room, just in case," I replied gently. Gina gave me a grateful smile and nodded, understanding without words. I told her about the arrangements that had been made with the funeral home and that I would pick up her parents at the airport as they were flying in that day. She thanked me for everything I had done. When our daughters finally appeared, I told Gina to remain seated, and I made breakfast for everyone. Once the kitchen was cleaned, it was time for me to head to the airport. I arrived early enough to be waiting when Gina's parents came out at arrivals. Having seen their pictures before, I had no trouble recognizing them. "Mr. and Mrs. Hanley, and Mark Cohen, Gina's friend," I said, extending my hand. "It's nice to meet you, Mark. Please call me Dan. And this is my wife, Eleanor," Gina's father said, shaking my hand. "I feel as if I almost know you. Our daughter often speaks of you very highly." "The feelings are mutual, then," I replied. I couldn't accomplish what I do without her help. Both she and Rob have become dear friends. I just wish we were meeting under better circumstances. Eleanor gave me a hug, her eyes brimming with tears. I immediately liked them both. We gathered their luggage, loaded it into the car, and I drove them to Gina's home. It was a bittersweet reunion, and more tears were shed. Emma and I stayed for lunch, offering any support we could, before taking our leave. Rob's funeral was held the following Monday. Rob's brother was there, as well as many of Rob's friends, as he had been well-liked for his easygoing ways and quick humor. I was also pleased to see that many of the subcontractors who had worked for me over the years and knew Gina attended to pay their respects. Gina's parents stayed for another 2 days, and on Wednesday, they invited Emma and me over for lunch. After lunch, we adults went into the living room, while Emma and Lucy went to Lucy's room. The conversation stayed light until Eleanor spoke up. "Honey, do you know what your plans are now?" she asked Gina. "You know we would love to have you and Lucy move back home." "I know, Mom. You and Dad have always been there to support me, and I love you for that. But this has all been so sudden that Lucy and I are going to need some time to decide what to do next," Gina replied. "As soon as we know, we'll let you know. Until then, I hadn't thought about the possibility that Gina might move away." The sudden realization gave me a hollow feeling in the pit of my stomach, and yet, as her friend, I would support whatever she decided. I stayed a little after 5 p.m. and before leaving, took Gina aside. "I know you need time to mourn and to think about your life now. I want you to take all the time you need. Don't worry about work, and if you do decide to move back with your parents, I want you to know I'll support your decision. You have to do what's best for you and Lucy now. In the meantime, if you need anything at all, please call. They'll always be here for you." Gina teared up and gave me a hug. "Thank you, Mark. I don't think I would have made it this far without you." Her father followed Emma and me out to the car and shook my hand again. "Mark, Gina has told us how much you've done for her and Lucy through all of this. I want you to know how much Eleanor and I appreciate it." I shudder to think how much worse it would have been without your support. I shook his hand firmly. Dan, it's the least I could do. She, Rob, and Lucy were there for me and Emma after my wife left and abandoned our daughter. It was their love that really brought Emma out of her depression. As long as Gina remains here, you can rely on me to look after them the best I can. Over the next 2 weeks, Emma and I stopped by regularly to check on Gina and Lucy. She never mentioned if she had decided what she was going to do with her future, and I was content not to pry, giving her the time she needed. Lucy stayed home with her mother for the first week following the funeral, then returned to school. It was Monday, a week later, that I saw her car parked outside the office as I arrived for the day. When I walked in, she was sitting at her desk. I knew then that she had reached a decision. I just stood, looking at her and waiting for her to speak. Well, boss, are you going to show me everything you messed up over the last couple of weeks so I can fix it? She asked with a grin. Does this mean? Yes, she replied with a smile. It means we're staying. This is Luce's home, and all her friends are here. Moving would only make this harder for her. Besides, we both know you need me to keep your business running. I exhaled a deep breath I hadn't realized I was holding. You sure know how to butter up your boss, I said with a big grin. With that settled, I caught her up on the events of the past few weeks, and she kicked me out of the office, telling me to keep an eye on the subcontractors. I don't think the smile left my face all day. Over the next year, we continued to spend almost every weekend together due to our daughter's friendship. Gina and I attended the girls' sporting events and other school activities together, and when they didn't have events, the girls would usually come to my house and I always made sure Gina joined us. I didn't want her sitting around feeling down. Our friendship grew closer, to the point that there was nothing we couldn't talk about. Gina became a mother figure for Emma, who had been missing that, and Lucy came to see me as a father figure. Although, whenever I tried to be the disciplinarian, the girls would giggle, and Gina would have to step in. Both girls knew they had me wrapped around their fingers, but they were good kids, so we rarely denied them anything. It was a Saturday, a little over a year after Rob passed away. I had run over to one of the houses I had under construction to handle a small crisis. When I got back home, I saw Gina's car in the driveway. We had planned a barbecue and a day of lounging by the pool. As I came into the house, I heard the girls laughing and giggling outside, so I went to the laundry room to grab my swim trunks, which I had left to dry. Normally, I would change in my bedroom, but today I figured I would just slip into the downstairs bathroom. With my swimsuit in hand, I opened the door to the bathroom and stopped dead in my tracks. Standing in front of me was Gina, reaching for her bikini top, wearing only a skimpy pair of bikini bottoms. I stood there for a few seconds, frozen. I would seen her in a swimsuit many times, but never like this. Gina gasped, crossing her arms across her chest, and I stammered, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." I quickly turned and shut the door behind me, hurrying to the living room. My face was flushed, and I was flustered. I hoped I hadn't ruined our friendship or embarrassed her. After about 10 minutes, Gina came out, now dressed in her bikini. She could clearly see I looked embarrassed. "Mark, I'm really sorry. I heard the girls outside and thought you were out there with them," I said in a rush, still apologizing. She tried to look serious, but it only lasted a moment before she burst out laughing. She walked over, patted my cheek, and said, "Mark, I know you'd never do that intentionally. Don't worry about it. Now go get changed and put the chicken on the grill. I'm hungry." I stood there, watching her walk away, letting out a sigh of relief that she wasn't mad. I quickly changed and did as she asked. When I went outside, Gina was sipping some wine as the girls splashed around in the pool. I did my best to focus on grilling and not let my mind drift back to the image of her in the bathroom, but it was challenging. After we ate, we sat back in reclining chairs, enjoying the sun. Our conversation was light and easy, just like always. During a lull in the conversation, though, Gina gave me a smirk, and I felt my face warm. She clearly remembered what had happened earlier. As the sun started to set, the girls announced they were heading over to Luce's to have a sleepover. They gathered their things, and as they headed to the car, Gina walked up to me and gave me a kiss on the cheek with a sly smile. "Thanks for today, Mark. See you tomorrow," she said with a grin. I watched them leave, feeling both relief and some confusion over my own reaction. Later that night, as I lay in bed, my mind drifted back to the moment I walked in on her. It was the first time since my divorce that I would felt that kind of attraction to someone, and it left me feeling both excited and uncertain. Gina was my friend, and I didn't want to do anything to ruin that. The next week at work was a bit strange for me. I found myself staring at her more often, admiring her without even realizing it. My feelings left me confused. I hadn't thought about being with anyone in a long time, and Gina wasn't just anyone, she was my close friend and had become a big part of Emma's life. The following Saturday, Gina and I dropped the girls off at a week-long sleepaway sports camp for girls. That evening, the local Builders Association, of which I was a member, was having their annual awards dinner. Gina was going as my guest. After the girls were settled in at camp, I dropped Gina off at her house, told her I would pick her up at 6, and went back home to get ready. I spent the afternoon trying to distract myself, doing a bit of gardening to clear my mind. Right at 6, I knocked on Gina's door, and my jaw dropped when she opened it. She was dressed in a simple but elegant black dress with a pearl necklace and black heels. The dress wasn't revealing, but it was stunning on her. "Wow, you look amazing," I stammered, unable to stop staring. "Thank you, kind sir," she said with a warm smile, clearly amused by my reaction. Despite the temptation to keep stealing glances, I kept my eyes on the road as we drove. Our conversation was light, as usual, and it helped calm my nerves. We arrived at the venue and joined a table with a few other builders and their spouses, where the main topic of conversation was, naturally, business. Dinner was surprisingly good, and then the awards portion of the evening began. When the award for quality of product was announced, I was pleasantly surprised to hear my name called. Gina jumped up, clapping and cheering, clearly thrilled. I kept my acceptance speech short. "Thank you to the association for this honor, but most of all, I want to thank Gina. This award belongs to her as much as it does to me. If it weren't for her keeping everything organized and on track, I wouldn't be up here today." When I returned to the table, Gina was standing with tears in her eyes and gave me a tight hug, then surprised me with a quick kiss on the lips. It wasn't romantic, but it sent a jolt through me, and I felt a rush of adrenaline. Once the awards were finished, the dance floor was cleared, and music began to play. I received congratulations from several colleagues, then turned to Gina and asked, "Would you like to dance?" She smiled and took my hand, leading me to the dance floor. The first song was an upbeat one. I wasn't much of a dancer, but Gina moved with such ease and grace that it was hard not to watch her. The next song was a slow one. I was about to lead her back to our table, but she placed her arms around my neck and moved in close. I hesitated but put my arms around her waist, and we began to sway to the music. It had been years since I would held a woman, and holding Gina in my arms had an immediate effect on me. I could feel myself getting flustered, hoping she hadn't noticed. When the song ended, I let her precede me back to the table, grateful for the moment to calm down. Gina finished her glass of wine, then leaned over and said, "Mark, I think a perfect way to end this evening would be to go back to your house for a soak in the hot tub." I didn't want the night to end, and the suggestion excited me. "Sounds like a great idea," I agreed, and we headed back to my place. As we drove, we talked about the award and how it could positively impact the business. Since I had a smart home setup, I used my phone to turn on the hot tub, so it would be ready by the time we arrived. When we got to the house, I fetched our swimsuits. Gina and Lucy often used the pool at my place, so they left some of their things here. She went to the bathroom to change while I quickly changed in the laundry room, grabbing a bottle of wine and 2 glasses to take outside. I was glad to already be in the tub, as the sight of Gina walking out in her bikini took my breath away. She slid into the water and accepted the glass of wine I handed her. For the first 10 minutes, we just soaked in silence, letting the warmth of the water relax us. Then Gina broke the silence, looking at me intently. "Mark, it's been over 2 years since Sandra left. Have you thought about having a woman in your life again?" I felt my face heat up at her question. Honestly, until recently, I hadn't really thought about it. I guess I was still a bit raw from everything. "You said until recently, has something changed?" she asked, looking amused. I fumbled over my words. "Well, I guess maybe seeing you." A sly smile spread across her face. She set her glass down, then reached behind her back, and before I knew it, her bikini top floated to the surface. My mouth fell open as she rose up slightly, her eyes locked on mine. "Was it seeing me like this?" she whispered. I felt my heart race and I whispered back, "Yes, oh, Gina." She slid over to me, parting her legs and straddling my lap, her arms wrapping around my neck. My hands instinctively moved to her waist as we locked into a deep, passionate kiss. All the feelings I had been suppressing for the last year surged to the surface. That night, Gina and I shared an intimacy that went beyond anything I had experienced. We both had been through heartbreak, and somehow, we found comfort and passion in each other's arms. The next morning, I woke up with her beside me, her head resting on my shoulder. "Good morning, beautiful," I said softly. She smiled, snuggling closer. "Good morning, handsome." The night we had spent together felt natural, and as we got up to start the day, everything felt right. Gina and I spent the next 2 weeks enjoying each other's company and finally addressing the feelings we both had. When it was time to pick up the girls from camp, we knew we needed to talk to them. We decided to be upfront with them about our relationship and see how they felt. We picked up the girls together, and as we continuing from where we left off picked up the girls together, they seemed ecstatic to see us both. The car ride home was filled with stories about their camp experiences, and the girls were so full of energy that Gina and I decided to wait until we were all back home to talk to them. Once we arrived, the girls were still buzzing with excitement, barely pausing to unpack their bags before rushing to tell us more about camp. After they had calmed down a bit, Gina and I exchanged glances, and I gently cleared my throat to get their attention. "Emma, Lucy," I began, "Gina and I have something I'd like to talk to you about." The girls looked at us with curiosity, their chatter quieting down. Gina reached for my hand, and I felt reassured by her touch. "Over the past year, we've spent a lot of time together as a family," Gina said, smiling warmly at the girls. "And we've come to realize that we care for each other very deeply. Mark and I were in love." Emma and Lucy looked at each other and then at us, smiles breaking across their faces. "So, you're going to be like boyfriend and girlfriend?" Lucy asked, grinning. "Something like that," I said, smiling. "We're going to take things one step at a time, but we wanted to make sure you both were okay with it. This would mean Gina and Lucy might eventually move in with us permanently." The girls' reactions were even more enthusiastic than I could have hoped for. Emma squealed and hugged Lucy, and they both launched themselves at Gina and me. "Oh my gosh, that would be amazing," Emma exclaimed. "I mean, Lucy and I are practically sisters already." Lucy nodded, beaming. "I love that idea, and I already think of you as my dad, Mark." Hearing her say that brought tears to my eyes, and I pulled her into a tight hug. "Lucy, it would be an honor." That night, our newly blended family celebrated by ordering pizza and watching movies together, filling the house with laughter and joy. It felt like everything was finally falling into place, and I couldn't have been happier. Over the next few months, Gina and Lucy gradually transitioned into our home. We took time to rearrange the house so everyone had their own space and a say in how things were organized. Gina put her house on the market, and it sold quickly, adding a nice nest egg that we set aside for the girls' college funds. Life settled into a new routine that felt effortless and right. Gina and I balanced our work lives and our family life, supporting each other through the ups and downs of parenting 2 teenage girls. Emma and Lucy became inseparable, sharing everything from school projects to inside jokes. It was clear that they were not just best friends but sisters in every way that mattered. One evening, about 6 months after Gina and Lucy had officially moved in, I decided to make everything official. I took Gina out for a quiet dinner, just the two of us. As we walked along the pier after dinner, with the city lights reflecting off the water, I stopped, holding her hands in mine. "Gina, you've brought so much light into my life. You're not only my best friend but also my partner, and I can't imagine my life without you by my side. Will you marry me?" Gina's eyes filled with tears, and she nodded, whispering, "Yes, Mark, yes." We embraced, sealing our commitment with a kiss, feeling that this moment was as much for us as it was for our 2 daughters, who had made this journey possible by bringing us together. We planned a simple, intimate wedding with just our closest friends and family. Emma was my proud flower girl, and Lucy stood by Gina's side as her maid of honor. June and Barry were there to celebrate with us, along with a few of my trusted subcontractors and their spouses who had known us both for years. It was a day filled with love, laughter, and new beginnings. We honeymooned in Fiji, where we found a perfect balance of relaxation and adventure, exploring the islands by day and basking in each other's company by night. When we returned home, the girls had made a surprise welcome home banner with flowers from the garden, and we celebrated with them, sharing stories from our trip and lots of hugs. From that day on, we embraced life as a complete family. Gina and I made a point of supporting the girls in every way, attending every school event and helping them navigate the challenges of teenage years. The bond between us grew stronger every day, and both Emma and Lucy eventually started calling me Dad and Gina Mom without hesitation. A year later, we celebrated our first anniversary as a family by taking the girls to the same spot where I had proposed to Gina, sharing stories and reminiscing about our journey. Life hadn't always been easy, But we had found each other, and from the ashes of loss and heartbreak, we had built a new beginning, filled with love and family. As I looked around at the three most important people in my life, I knew that we had something truly special, something that would last a lifetime. Thanks for watching. Do you believe in second chances? Let us know, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
I'm truly sorry, Mr. Jackson. I hate giving guys like you bad news, Frank Nelson said as he handed me an envelope containing a full written account of my wife's activities with her former boss, Mike Harris. The envelope also contained several photographs and a DVD. I'd already seen the photos but hadn't watched the DVD yet. Part of me didn't want to look at it, but I knew it would be necessary so that I could deal with what Frank had found. "Do you have any idea how long this has been going on?" I asked. Frank reviewed his initial report before responding. "From what we could determine from the transcripts, at least 8 years, Mike said, possibly up to 10 years. It seems this started around the time your wife was being considered for the top job. This was about a year after our son Jack was born. Still, I decided that I would need to do a DNA test to find out if the children were mine. Then I thought of something else. What about sexually transmitted diseases? The report revealed that Mike, in addition to Anna, has several other married women with whom he has sex. How could she infect me during all this time? I need to get tested, and as soon as possible." Looking at the report again, I laughed humorlessly at Frank's conclusion that Anna seemed blissfully unaware of what the scumbag was doing when he wasn't having sex with her. "If it's any consolation, Mr. Jackson, your wife's lover has stated that he never had any intention of ruining your marriage. All he wanted was her body," Frank said, "and they never did anything in your house. I let Frank outfit our house with cameras and microphones when I first hired him. At least my marital bed was not disturbed by Mike's bodily fluids, I thought." "No, that's no consolation, Mr. Nelson," I said. "But thank you for telling me about it. I met Mike Harris a few times and didn't like him too much. He was what women would call handsome, but he was also a smug, arrogant jerk with a smirk that drove me crazy. More than once I had to fight the urge to wipe that grin right off his face. Now I know the real reason for his grin." "That's not all, Mr. Jackson," Frank said. "From what we've seen and heard, Mike's sister, Karen, was aware of their relationship from the very beginning. In fact, it looks like she may have been helping them." This saddened me somewhat, since I had always thought Karen was a sweet woman, the complete opposite of her brother. "Damn," I said softly. "So, have you already talked to the lawyer?" asked Frank. "Not yet," I said. "I wanted to find out the truth first." "Well, I work a lot with Sarah Jenkins. She's the best in the business, in my opinion. She hates cheaters with a passion. If you want, I can forward this to her office and let her know that you are coming to see her," Frank said. "That would be nice," I said. "Thank you, I'll call her office and make an appointment." Frank gave me a business card, and I put it in my pocket. "May I make a suggestion?" asked Frank. "Of course," I said. "Let Sarah take care of it. I understand that you are hurting right now and may be tempted to lash out at her. No need. It's not worth going to jail over. This is not some story on the internet. This is real life. You have 2 children to think about," he said. "I understand," I said. "Thank you." I paid the bill and left his office feeling like my entire married life had been a lie. I knew Frank was right, but it still hurt like hell. I sat in the car and cried for about 15 minutes, collecting my thoughts. I took out the card he had given me, called Sarah Jenkins' law office, and made an appointment for the next day. Sarah gave me a list of things to bring, first of all, financial statements. On the way home, I stopped at the store and bought a pack of cigarettes, something I hadn't done since college. Then I went to the bar and tried to drown my sorrows in beer. I'm not much of a drinker, but this time I felt like I deserved it. "Are you okay, buddy?" asked the bartender as I took a drag from my cigarette. I looked up at him before answering. "Is it really that obvious?" I asked in response. "I'm afraid so," he said with a slight smile. "Don't tell me, let me guess. You just found out that your wife is cheating on you." "Yes, practically," I said. "The last 8 years, if you can believe it." "I can believe it," he said. I've seen and heard almost everything since I started working here." "You bet," I said. He chuckled at this. "Do you mind if I tell you something my grandfather once told me?" he asked. "Go ahead," I said. He said, "I felt sorry for myself because I didn't have shoes. Then I met a guy who didn't have feet. I know you're hurting right now. I've been there myself, but it gets better. And believe me, there are a lot of guys who had it much worse than you," he said. "Your grandfather seems to have been a very wise man," I said. "So it was," said the bartender. "Finish your beer and go home, son. Get busy. Do what you have to do. You won't find any answers at the bottom of this glass. Trust me." I smiled at this and nodded my head. I knew deep down that this old bartender was right. While sipping my beer, I thought about many things. I would never have believed that Anna would actually cheat on me. Over the years, there have been little things that in and of themselves could not be considered absolute proof of betrayal. But when I put it all together, it all made sense, at least to me. For example, after the birth of our second child, Jack, I had a vasectomy. Anna started taking birth control again, and I thought it was strange. So I asked her about it. After all, why would she need birth control if I had a vasectomy? She told me a story about being very careful and said that the pills would help regulate her periods. Not being an expert in such matters, I bought her explanation. Then, when she got the job and started traveling with Mike, I noted that some of her clothes weren't exactly what you'd call business attire. She indicated that entertainment would likely be a big part of her new job when I asked her about it. Now I knew that it was Mike who was entertaining her. Apparently this was an important part of her new position, so to speak. I often called to talk to her in the evenings when she was not at home. I was amazed that she was always in her room when I called, but several times I thought I heard a man's voice nearby. On other occasions I heard Anna's voice crack as she spoke. I couldn't explain it then, but if at that moment while she was talking to me on the phone she was having sex with Mike, that of course would explain everything. There were also times when I could smell Mike's aftershave on Anna's clothes when she came home. I knew it was his scent because I smelled it every time I met him, and it almost made me sick. This could only happen if she was in close contact with him. Then there were the Friday afternoons when she was supposedly asked to work after she retired. My specialized skills are still needed, so my services have been retained for 1 day a week, although sometimes I will have to travel, she told me when I asked her about it. "It's just business," she added. Now I knew her special skills included having sex with her boss, and it was much more than just business. And if that wasn't enough, 1 day a week turned into 2, sometimes 3 days, and she usually didn't get home until 9 or 10 p.m., and her occasional trips turned from 1 a month to 2 or 3, and almost always included an entire weekend. So much for your pension. All this has happened in just the last 4 months. The fact is that Anna's attitude towards me has not changed at all. She was just as sweet and loving to me as she was when we first got married. She seemed to enjoy being home with the kids and me, and we enjoyed having her at home. It was a welcome change as I became the children's primary caregiver due to her crazy schedule. This bothered me for quite some time, so I hired Frank's investigative firm to look into her activities, and now my worst fears were confirmed. The only question that now remains to be answered is how to divide everything. If it was just a drunken one-off, I probably could have gotten over it. Yes, I would be angry, but it wouldn't be a deciding factor. However, it was a cold, calculating, and deliberate betrayal that lasted more than 8 years, and now it's time to pay. I put out my cigarette, finished my beer, and walked out, waving to the bartender and giving him a good tip for his time. When I returned home, I saw her car in the garage. To be honest, I was a little surprised to see her there. I closed the garage door and went inside. I took off my jacket and headed to my home office. Anna intercepted me on the way and immediately smelled cigarettes and beer. "You smoked," she said, frowning, "and I smell beer. Is everything okay, John?" "No, to be honest, no. In fact, today was the worst day of my life," I said. "What's happened? Did someone die or something?" she asked. She seemed genuinely concerned, but I wondered if she was just pretending. Something, I said. I'm going to my office for the evening. I'm afraid I won't have very good company today. Is there anything I can do, honey? She asked. Yes, I thought. Get off it. I'm afraid there's nothing you can do, I said. By the way, John, I'm going away for the weekend starting Friday, she said. It was only Tuesday, and she's telling me she's going away for the weekend again. What, again? Didn't you just go away for the weekend, I asked. Yes, but I'm afraid something has happened, she said. It's just business, you know. You bet, I said sarcastically. What about Jack's birthday? It's this Saturday. I know, she said, but this simply cannot be avoided. Please explain to him why I can't be there, please. No, I answered. I won't cover for you anymore. You missed Jack's birthday last year and our anniversary. You can tell him yourself why you prefer to be on the trip with Mike rather than celebrating his birthday here. Anna was not too happy about this and sighed heavily before answering. John, please, you're being unreasonable, she said. No, Anna, I said. You supposedly retired a few months ago after your company was sold, but you've been gone so much that I can't help but wonder what's really going on. Maybe you want to tell me something? What do you want to say? Are you accusing me of having an affair? She asked defensively. Well, what would you think if the situation were reversed? I asked. After that, she backed down a little. I understand you, she said, but believe me, it's just business. That's what you said, I told her. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have something to do. Please don't detain me tonight. You'll have to look after the children. I went into my home office, closed and locked the door. I heard Anna trying to open the door. John, she asked, please, John, talk to me. Leave it alone, Anna, I said through clenched teeth. I'm busy. I heard her leave and began gathering all the information Sarah said she would need. I then turned to the evidence Frank provided. I read the report and found it hard to believe that this was the woman I had loved and supported for the past 8 years. Then I put on my headphones and started the DVD. Unless you have been in my shoes and been there, you simply cannot understand the full range of emotions when the woman you love more than anything in the world willingly gives herself to another man. I didn't know how Frank got the videos, and I didn't care. All I knew was that all the love I once felt for Anna was now gone. As I watched her have sex with Mike in his bed, I swore I'd never touch her again. I took the time to listen to their pillow talk. Still valid this weekend? Mike asked, hugging her. Of course, Anna answered with a smile. You know I can't go long without sex with you. What about your son's birthday? It's this weekend, isn't it? He asked. Yes, but John will be there, she said. He copes much better with children than I do. Besides, if I had a choice between running around with a bunch of cranky kids or being here with you, I'd choose to be with you. You know I like having you here, Anna, but I'm worried he might get suspicious, Mike said. In the end, you should be retired. I already told you, Mike, retired or not, I'm going to continue having sex with you. Yes, I love my family and I love John, but I would never give up sex with you, she said. You are now a part of my life, and what we have shared for the last 8 years means more to me than you will ever know. I'm glad to hear that from you, Mike said. Remember when we first started, you said that if you had a choice, you would have stayed with John and the children. Do you still think so? Honestly, I don't know, she said. This was never brought up. I don't know how you managed to keep him in the dark all these years, Mike said. You know, if he ever figures it out, he'll be in for hell. It wasn't easy at first, but I learned to separate my business life from my home life, she said. I never refused him anything and always tried to treat him right. I'm not worried about him finding out. If he finds out, I will simply threaten to rape him in the divorce. I don't think it will be that easy, Mike said. But if something happens, you can stay here if you want. I like it when you're around. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it, but nothing will happen. He hasn't figured it out in 8 years, and I don't think he ever will. How long do you intend to continue in the same spirit? As long as possible, for the rest of my life if I can, she said. You just might make your wish come true, I thought as I turned off the video. I pulled out the DVD and put it back in my briefcase. I heard Anna knock on the office door. "What?" I asked. "The children go to bed," she said. "Maybe you could at least go out and say goodnight to them." "Yes, just for a minute," I said. I turned off the computer and went upstairs, ignoring Anna. I tried to put on a happy face as I put the kids to bed. Jack looked at me cheerfully. "Are you okay, Dad?" he asked. "Yes," I answered, smiling at him. "I'm fine. Go to bed, honey. I love you." "I love you too," he said, kissing me. I left his room, went downstairs, and grabbed a cup of coffee. "I warmed up dinner for you, John," Anna said. "I'm not hungry," I said, going outside. I sat down on one of the lounge chairs on the back patio and lit a cigarette. Anna came out a couple of minutes later. She tried to kiss me, but I turned my head and she kissed me on the cheek. I did not want for anything in the world to touch the lips with which she caressed Mike Harris. She looked at me, shocked. "Talk to me, John. Please, what's bothering you?" she asked with a worried expression on her face. "I've never seen you like this, and you know that I don't like it when you smoke. You haven't smoked since college." "Yes, but we don't always get what we want, do we?" I asked. "And what does it mean?" she asked. I shook my head and said nothing. "John, please talk to me. I love you. You know you can tell me everything." I looked at her through the clouds of smoke and shook my head. "I'm afraid it's too late for that," I said. "Too late for what? I don't understand," she said. "You are a smart businesswoman," I said. "You will understand everything. Now please leave me alone. I need to figure something out." "But maybe I can help if you just tell me what's going on," she begged. "Anna, please, for the last time, just leave me alone," I said, anger evident in my voice. I realized that my attitude might give everything away now, so I toned down my tone a little. "Sorry it's so short. This job is very bad and it gets me. Maybe in a couple of days." I didn't like lying to her, but I thought, what the hell? It's okay to lie to a liar, isn't it? "Okay," she said quietly. She stepped away from me, tears streaming down her face. She then turned and disappeared into the house. I smoked 2 more cigarettes and went into the house. I took a shower to wash away the smell of cigarettes, put on pajamas that I rarely used, and climbed into bed. Anna was lying on her side and, crawling under the blanket, turned to me. She reached for my manhood, but I waved her hand away. This was the first time in our entire marriage that I had turned down her request for sex. "John," she began. I turned my back to her, not bothering to kiss her good night. "Good night, Anna," I said. She turned away, sobbing. At this moment, I didn't care. She could have gone straight to hell because I didn't care. I woke up the next day, showered, got dressed, and packed my things for work. I spent time with the children until they left for school, and then I left the house without so much as a glance at Anna. She looked at me cheerfully as I headed towards the door. "Will I never get a kiss from you again?" she asked when I opened the door. "Sorry," I said, kissing her. "I love you," she said. "Yes, me too," I said, walking out the door. I made it to the office and was able to get some work done, but it wasn't easy. I told my boss what was going on, and he seemed to understand since he had recently gone through a divorce himself. "Do what you have to do," he said. "If you need a vacation, let me know." I thanked him and went back to work, leaving early to meet Sarah. "Good afternoon, Mr. Jackson," she said as I entered her office. Sarah Jenkins was about my age, around 35, with long blonde hair cascading over her shoulders. I saw the rings on her fingers and decided that she was married. "Please, Mrs. Jenkins, call me John," I said, shaking her hand. "And you can call me Sarah," she said. "I read the report that Mr. Nelson sent me. I'm sorry this happened to you. I see things like this often, but they never stop bothering me. How are you holding up?" "Not very well, I'm afraid," I said. "I can understand that," she said. "Have you told her anything yet?" "Not yet, but last night I was pretty short with her," I said. "I suggest you try to be a little more polite with her. I know it will be difficult given what you have learned, but you don't have to show what you know, at least not yet. Let her continue to live as if nothing has changed. She will receive her wake-up call when she is being served. You can do it." "You're right, it will be difficult, very difficult," I said, "but I will do my best." "Okay," said Sarah. "Now, What do you want to get out of this divorce? As much as I can get, I said. I definitely want custody of the children as long as they are truly mine. You know that usually the mother ends up with custody, right? She asked. I have been their primary caregiver for the past 8 years, I said. And you heard her say on the video that I'm a much better parent than she is. I would have thought that the fact that she chooses to be with her lover rather than her son on his birthday would mean something. It is, and we can use it, said Sarah. She reviewed the financial information I had brought with me, making notes as she read. Looks like your wife received a good income from the sale of the company she worked for. The dividends she receives every month seem to be equal to your salary. This will certainly be in our favor. So there will be no alimony, I asked. Or very little, said Sarah. She's still relatively young, so there's no reason why she can't work. In fact, if we can get custody for you, we can get child support from her. What about the house? I asked. If we can get custody for you, you can stay in the house, and we can ask her to pay half the mortgage. Of course, there is a chance that the court will give her custody, in which case you will have to pay half the mortgage plus child support, she said. The only other option would be to sell the house, and you both would split the proceeds. What about our pension and bank accounts? I asked. We can sweeten the deal by taking retirement accounts out of the equation. Each of you will keep your 401k, the rest we will divide 50-50. In any case, that's what the judge will do, she said. What about Mike Harris? Can I sue him for alienation of affection? I asked. Not in this state, she said, but we will definitely name him during the divorce. It would be possible to sue for intentional infliction of emotional distress, but I honestly don't think that would go very far, at least not in this state. And his sister Karen, she knew this all along. Perhaps she even contributed to this, I said. It's almost the same with her. We can sue if you want, Sarah said. Yes, please. When will you be able to formalize all this? I asked. I think we can do it by Friday, she said. And what time? I asked. I would prefer it to be served late on Saturday evening. Shall spend the weekend with Mike, I said. It's clear a bit of shock and awe. I think we can arrange it, she said, but it will cost a little more if the process server leaves on Saturday. It's normal, I said. Do it. Okay, John, she said. We ended the meeting with a handshake. She gave me the obligatory warning not to do anything stupid before she took my deposit check. I left her office feeling more in control of the situation. When I returned home, I was somewhat surprised to see Anna's car in the garage. I expected her to be at the office since it was Wednesday. I touched the hood of her car. It was a little warm, which meant she had driven it not long ago. I walked inside and immediately smelled something cooking. Hi, honey, Anna said, leaving the kitchen. You returned home a little earlier. Everything is fine? Yes, I said. I hope you're in a better mood than yesterday. A little better. I am taking control of the situation, I said. This is good. Are you ready for dinner today? She asked. I cooked a roast, your favorite dish. I'll eat some, I said. Smells tasty. Did you go to the office today? Yes, for a couple of hours, she said, getting things ready for the weekend. Have you spoken to Jack? I asked. Yes, he's not too happy, but he's young. He'll get over it, Anna said. Where are the children now? I asked. In their rooms, doing homework, she answered. So are you still going on this trip with Mike? I asked. Yes, I told you, it's just business, she said firmly. Just business? When do you plan to retire? I asked her. I'm already retired, she said. They just need my special expertise for a while. I really don't know how much longer they will need my help. I think you could come back full-time. You're almost there. But I think you just need to do what you think is right, I told her. What does it mean? She asked. With all the hours you put in for them, you could get paid, I said. Why? She asked. I will bring home more when I retire. I put my briefcase in the office, then changed into more casual clothes. I complimented her on the roast. She was always a great cook, and I'll miss that when we part ways. After spending some time with the kids, I went to my office and locked the door. Anna tried to open the door, then knocked when she realized it was locked. I opened the door just enough to see her face on the other side. John, she asked, will you stay here tonight? I think so, I said. I still have a lot to think about, and I don't feel very good. I don't want to risk you getting sick right before the trip, so I'll sleep here on the futon tonight. Oh, okay, she said. Get well soon, John, please, I love you. Yes, me too, I said, closing the door. I heard her leave, then went to my computer where I did a search. When I found what I was looking for, I filled out the form, then checked my email for confirmation. I noted the phone number and set a reminder on my cell phone to call the next day to confirm that everything would go as I asked. The next day, Thursday, was almost the same as Wednesday, except that Anna tried to lure me into bed in a sexy nightgown that hid absolutely nothing. I always liked looking at her and being with her, but now that I knew what she was doing with Mike behind my back, there was nothing that attracted me to her body. Sorry, Anna, but I feel a terrible migraine coming on, I said quietly. I'm going to take something and sleep here in the office tonight. A tear rolled down her cheek as she turned and walked away, but I didn't care. She called me at noon the next day to tell me she was leaving. I hope you feel better, John, she said. Maybe we can meet again when I get back on Monday. My parents will pick up the kids from school today and bring them home tomorrow afternoon for Jack's party. Thank you for telling me about this, I said. I really love you, John, she said. I hope you believe me. Yes, I said. Bon voyage. See you later. Goodbye, Anna. I ended the call and dialed Sarah's number. I'm filling out all the paperwork now, John, she said. Tomorrow at 5:30 p.m., they will be served at Mike's house as you requested. Karen will be served on Monday. Thank you, Sarah, I said and ended the conversation. I told my personal assistant I was leaving for the day, locked my office, and headed home. I had a lot to do before the movers arrived in the afternoon. I had a whole bunch of boxes in the garage that I collected specifically for this job. I had just finished packing everything into boxes when the movers arrived with their truck at 5 p.m. They loaded everything into the back of the truck while I finished processing Anna's wedding dress. When I was finished, I placed the remains in a paper bag, folded the top of the bag, and attached an envelope to it. The envelope contained a short note, my wedding ring, and my marriage certificate, which I tore into 4 pieces. I handed the paper bag to one of the movers and asked that it be given to Anna when they arrived at Mike's house at 5:30 p.m. the next day. I also put in $2.50 bills as tips for the 2 men. I will take care of this personally, Mr. Jackson, the young man said, accepting the package. Thank you, I said. I reheated the leftover roast and watched TV while I ate in the living room. That night I slept soundly in the master bedroom. When Anna's parents arrived with the children, it was noon the next day. I had been on my feet for a long time and was preparing everything in the yard for Jack's birthday celebration, which began around 3 p.m. Anna ordered a cake, which I delivered in the morning and put in the refrigerator. God, you've been so busy, Anna's mother Donna said as she entered. I really had no choice, I replied. I just hope everything goes well. I'm sure the kids will have a great time, she said. Did Jack tell you that Anna won't be here? Yes, she said. Donna answered. I can't believe she won't even come to her son's birthday. She looked at me amusedly before continuing. Is everything okay between you? I sent the kids upstairs to get ready for the party before turning to Donna and her husband, George. No, it's not okay, I answered. I hate to tell you this, but you will soon find out anyway. I'm divorcing Anna. What? Asked George. Why? I found out earlier this week that she's been sleeping with her boss for the last 8 years, I said. In fact, that's exactly what she's doing now. Oh my God, Donna said. Are you absolutely sure about this? Yes, completely. I had my suspicions for a long time, but I realized that something was wrong after she supposedly retired about a month ago. I hired an investigator to look into this. I have his detailed report, photographs, and many videos if you are interested in seeing them, I said. No, everything is fine, she said. And you're sure you can't forgive her? I'm absolutely sure, I said. Not after all this time. I'd like to see this report, said George. I can't believe she could do such a stupid thing. While you're at it, I'll finish getting everything ready for Jack's party, Donna said. I thanked Donna and asked George to follow me to my home office. I handed him my copy of the written report. His eyes widened as he read the details of his daughter's actions with Mike. When he finished reading, he shook his head. "That stupid girl," he said, reporting back. "I'm sorry, John. I know that she is my daughter, but it is very difficult for me to cope with this." "Now you know a little how I feel," I said. "What are you going to do with that jerk, Mike?" he asked me. "I filed a lawsuit against him and his sister for intentional infliction of mental suffering," I said. He snorted at this. "And that's all?" he asked. "This man stole your wife, had sex with her for 8 years, and you're just going to sue him? Do you know how far this lawsuit will go?" "I understand, George," I said. "I'd like to hit him in the genitals with a tire changer, but all that would do is land me in jail. I have 2 children to think about, George. I can't be a good parent if I end up in prison." George nodded his head. "You're probably right," he said. "However, according to that report, Mike seems to enjoy dating married women. I'll bet you $1 that Anna isn't the first person he's done this to." "Probably not," I said. "I'll tell you what, John," said George. "Why don't you let me deal with this bastard?" "He's not worth going to jail over," I said. "Don't worry, son," he said. "Nobody will go to jail." Although he was a brute, George was a large man. I met some of the guys he worked with, and they were pretty big too and strong, and they all looked out for each other. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "The less you know, the better," George said with a wink and a smile. "Fine, whatever you say," I told him. He smiled and patted me on the shoulder. "Come on, John, let's go have some fun with the kids," he said. We went outside and saw that Donna had finished packing everything for the party. When Jack came downstairs, his eyes widened, and he gasped when he saw the decorations. "Thank you, Dad," he said, hugging me around the neck. "It's so wonderful. I wish Mom was here to see it." "Me too," I said. "We can take photos for her to look at later, okay?" "Okay," he said. I started grilling hamburgers and hot dogs for everyone. At about 4:30 p.m., the doorbell rang, and I knew it was the beginning. Over the next half hour, more than a dozen parents showed up at the door with their children. They were all Jack's school friends, and they all had a great time outside. One of the last to appear was Karen and her husband Steve, with their daughter Emily. I invited them inside and showed Emily the way to the backyard, where the party was in full swing. I offered Karen and Steve something to drink, and they kindly agreed. "I'm surprised to see you here, Karen." "I thought you guys had an important business trip this weekend," I said. "It's Mike and Anna's job," she said. "I'm just their assistant in the office." "Yeah," I said. "John, is everything okay?" Karen asked. "Between you and Anna, that is." "Why do you ask?" I asked in response. "You're not wearing a wedding ring," she said. I looked at my finger and saw a dent where the ring used to be. "I gave it back to her," I said. "Maybe Mike will have better luck than me." "What does it mean?" Karen asked. "Oh, please, Karen," I said. "Spare me this nonsense. I know your brother has been having sex with Anna for the last 8 years. I'll admit you guys did a good job of pulling the wool over my eyes this whole time." "John, please. Anna still loves you," Karen said. "Yes, so much so that she lied and deceived me for more than 8 years. I can't put into words how loved I feel right now," I said sarcastically. "So what are you going to do?" Karen asked. "What do you think? I'm divorcing this witch. She and Mike will soon get what they deserve," I said, looking at my watch. "Will they serve it?" Karen asked. "Yes, Anna will be served with divorce papers, and I will sue Mike. They'll give it to you on Monday," I said. "To me? Why are you suing me? I didn't do anything," Karen objected. "Exactly," I said. "For more than 8 years, you knew what they were doing. In fact, my private investigator said you may even have contributed to this, and all this time you acted like you were my friend. You could have said or done something, but you didn't. How often have you sat in my house, eaten my food at my table? How often have you taken advantage of my hospitality knowing what Anna was doing with your brother? Did you enjoy making me a fool and a cuckold? Now my marriage and my family are destroyed, and you are partly to blame for this. Thanks to you 3, I will never be able to love or trust another woman as long as I live, and my children lost their mother. I hope you're happy." "John, I'm not happy at all," she said. "Regret is not an option, Karen," I said. For 8 years, the three of you conspired to destroy my family. You didn't care what it did to me or my children. Now you have succeeded." "It's not like that at all," said Karen. "Is it true? Was it just business between you three?" "Initially, yes," she said. "Actually, it was Mike's idea. She wanted to get a job, so she accepted. But she didn't like it. Over time, everything changed." "After you sold your company and supposedly retired?" I asked. "It was all because of her," Karen said. "I thought it would all end, but Anna decided to continue the relationship. So she chose poorly," I said, "but you still played your role." "I'm really sorry, John," she said. "None of us wanted to hurt you." "But you did," I said, "in the most terrible way imaginable. I think it's best if you pack up your family and leave my house." Karen nodded her head. "I understand, John," she said quietly before turning and walking away. "And Karen," I called. She turned to look at me. "Never come back." She wiped a tear from her face, then went to get Emily and Steve. Anna and Mike were lying naked in his bed when her phone buzzed, telling her that she had just received a text. Thinking it was John sending her photos from Jack's party, she took the phone from the nightstand and read a message from Karen. "He knows everything." "Oh, damn," she exclaimed. "What's happened?" Mike asked. "It was Karen," she said. "John knows everything." "I'd better clean myself up and go home." "Are you sure this is reasonable?" said Mike. "Yes," Anna answered. She got out of bed and put on her robe. At that moment, they heard the doorbell ring. "Who the hell could this be?" Mike asked. He got out of bed and looked out the window. "What the hell?" he asked when he saw a sedan and a truck in his circular driveway. Throwing on trousers and a robe, he went downstairs and Anna followed him. When he opened his door, he saw a man in a light jacket. "What can I do for you?" Mike asked. "Are you Mike Harris?" the man asked. "Yes," Mike answered. "Is Anna Jackson here too?" "It's me," Anna said, coming out from behind Mike. "I need to see your IDs, please," the man said. "For what?" Mike asked, taking out his wallet. The man said nothing as he looked at Mike's license. He then handed Mike an envelope. "You have been served," said the man. "Miss Jackson, I need your ID, please." "Of course," Anna said, taking her wallet out of her purse. The man looked at her license, then handed her an envelope. "You have been served," he said. "You should also know that there is a restraining order attached to the papers I just gave you. Both of you are required to remain at least 500 feet away from Mr. John Jackson, his residence, his place of employment, and his 2 children. This includes their school. Failure to comply with this order may result in your arrest. All the best." As the man turned and walked away, Anna and Mike looked at each other in shock. "Excuse me, is one of you Anna Jackson?" asked another man wearing jeans and a t-shirt. "Yes, that's me," Anna answered. The man handed her a paper bag with an envelope stapled to it, and she looked at him, confused. "I was asked to give this to you, ma'am." "I have a few more boxes here," the man said. "Where should I put them?" Mike and Anna looked at each other before speaking. Just put them in the front room for now," Mike said. "Thank you, sir," the man said, and returned to the truck. While the 2 lovers watched, the men brought several boxes and stacked them in the front room as Mike had indicated. While they were doing this, Anna opened the envelope. Inside was John's wedding ring, a note, and their marriage certificate torn into 4 pieces. Anna began to cry as she read the note. "Anna," the note, written on a typewriter, began, "The entire time we were married, all I did was love and support you. Imagine my surprise when I found out that for the last 8 years you've been cheating on me with Mike Harris. So this is how you repaid my love for you with lies and betrayal. All this time you said it was just business, but now I know that it was more, much more than business. I hope it was all worth it. I advise you to contact a lawyer at the first opportunity, the earlier, the better. I've already divided our finances according to the divorce papers, and I've already changed the locks on the doors. Since I have been the children's primary caregiver since you began your relationship with Mike 8 years ago, I'm asking for full custody. However, I will not refuse you visitation rights. Please have your lawyer contact mine to arrange this. Also, since Mike allowed you to stay with him, I sent all your things to his house. If you want to take anything else from the house, ask your lawyer to contact me, and we can make arrangements for you to take back everything that you consider to be yours. I have no desire to see your face or hear your lies anymore. Please don't mess with the kids or me. I promise that if you try to contact me, the restraining order will be enforced. Please don't fight the terms of the divorce. I don't want this to get any uglier than it needs to be for the sake of the kids. But if you decide to challenge it, I will. For your information, I have photographs, several videos, and a detailed report from a private investigator who has been looking into your activities for the past month. I have not yet told the children about the reason for the divorce, but I will when I feel that the time has come. Your parents have read the report, but they haven't seen any photos or videos yet. For once in your life, do the right thing and end this sham marriage. From now on, Anna, you are dead to me. Goodbye. The note was signed, John. With tears in her eyes, she opened the paper bag and saw the ashes that had once been a wedding dress, the same dress she had worn when she married John. She fell to the floor and sobbed. Mike took her in his arms and read the letter. "What a son of a bitch," he said. "I'll kick his ass for this." "No, Mike, please don't. I don't want to see you in jail. It's all on me," she said. "What did you get?" "He sued me for intentional infliction of emotional distress," Mike said. "He asks for $5 million. I'll call my lawyer and see what I can do about all this." "I wonder if he's going to go after Karen too," Anna said. "Let him find out," Mike said, picking up the phone. "If yes, then we need to meet and discuss it. Let's see if we can mitigate the damage." When the party ended, I thanked everyone for coming and thanked them for the gifts. I turned around and saw the mess in the house and knew I would be busy for a while. Jack came up to me with tears in his eyes. "What's the matter, honey?" I asked, taking him in my arms. "I wish Mom was here," he said. "I miss her." "Yes, me too," I said. "Unfortunately, your mother had other things to do." Jack looked at me sadly. "Are you divorcing her?" he asked, and tears rolled down his face. I didn't want to ruin his day, but I knew that someday I would have to tell him about it. "Well, talk about this later, okay?" "It's that guy, Mike, isn't it?" Aaron came up and asked. "Why do you ask that?" I asked him. "I heard Mom talk to him on the phone several times," he said. Interesting, I thought. I decided not to pursue this topic, at least for now. "Well, talk tomorrow," I said firmly. "Today is Jack's birthday. Now I need you to help me clean up here, okay?" "Okay, Dad," Aaron said. I hugged Jack again and kissed him on the cheek. "Everything will be fine," I told him, wiping a tear from his face. "I love you." "I love you too, Daddy," he said. Donna and George stayed and helped us clean the house. "Are you going to be okay, John?" Donna asked before they left. "I'll be fine," I said. "Thank you for coming and helping." "You're welcome," she said. "If you need anything at all, don't be shy. Ask." "I appreciate it," I told her. Donna hugged me, and George shook my hand. "Take care of yourself, son," he said. I closed and locked the door after they left. Exhausted, I went upstairs and fell asleep almost as soon as my head hit the pillow. The next day, after preparing breakfast for the three of us, I got up and went about my usual Sunday routine. I mowed the lawn and Aaron trimmed the bushes with a grinder. When we were done, we cleaned everything up and put it back in its place. It was lunchtime, so I went inside and took a shower and was a little surprised to see Jack making sandwiches for us. We ate at the table, then cleared the plates. Jack looked at me when we finished. "Okay, Dad," he said. "You have to tell us what's going on." I was afraid of this, but I knew it was going to happen. So I brought the children into the living room and asked them to sit down. "There's no easy way to say this, so I'll just say it," I said. "I'm divorcing your mother." The children took my statement calmly, without outbursts of anger. I thought they would be upset, but they didn't seem to mind. "She cheated on you with that guy, Mike, didn't she?" Aaron asked. "Yes," I said quietly, nodding my head. "I thought so," Aaron said. "I bet this has been going on for a long time, hasn't it?" "Why do you ask that?" I asked him. It was just the way she talked to him, he said. I heard her talking to him on the phone. She talks to him the same way she talks to you, Dad. I nodded my head. Why didn't I think of this myself? I already knew the reason. Until recently, I always trusted her and respected her privacy. I didn't feel the need to eavesdrop when she was on the phone with Mike or anyone else. So, how long has this been going on, Dad? Jack asked. As far as I can tell, 8 years, honey, I replied. He sighed. That means she started shortly after I was born, he said. Quite, I said. Damn her, said Jack. Sorry, Dad, he quickly added. I understood his feelings, so this time I left everything as it was. Can I stay with you? He asked. Of course you can, if that's what you want, I said. Me too, Dad, Aaron said. You were always here with us. Thanks, guys. This means more to me than you know. The thing is, I asked for custody of you guys, I said. I extended my arms, and they both came towards me, wrapping their arms around me. We hugged, and I was overcome with joy that my children wanted to stay with me. After a tearful hug, we spent the rest of the day without incident, but there was sadness in the house. The next few days also passed without incident. George and Donna agreed to pick up the kids after school and stayed with me until I got home from work. I didn't want to impose myself on them like that, but they understood everything and happily agreed to help. Donna even cooked us dinner that night, which was very helpful. On Tuesday, my lawyer, Sarah, called me. Anna consulted with a lawyer and wanted to visit the children. I didn't want to see her in the house, and I was afraid that she might do something stupid like leave with them. What about the restraining order? I asked. If you agree, then we can postpone it for a while. Say from 9 p.m. Friday evening to 9 a.m. Sunday, Sarah said. I know it will be difficult, but the last thing you want to do is seem unreasonable. I understand. What if she comes to the children at her parents' on Saturday, I suggested. I can let the kids stay there on Friday after school and pick them up on Saturday evening or Sunday. I'll suggest it and see what her lawyer says, Sarah said. Under no circumstances should Mike or Karen be there with her, I added. And there's a chance that the children won't want to see her. They're not too happy with her right now. I'll pass this on, said Sarah. Is there anything else? I asked. Yes, her lawyer wants to see the full private investigator's report, Sarah said. I made a copy and sent it. She should receive it no later than Thursday. So she hired a lawyer, I asked. Yes, she hired Beth Sawyer on Monday, Sarah said. I'm surprised Beth took this case because she hates cheaters about as much as I do. I suspect it's because she works at the same firm as Mike's lawyer. Either way, I'll talk to Beth and see what happens. I will be in touch. I received a response from Sarah the next day. Anna and her lawyer agreed to my proposals, provided that I delayed the restraining order for 36 hours from midnight Saturday to noon Sunday. And this will only affect Anna, not Mike or Karen. They also agreed that Anna would visit the children at her parents' house and not take them anywhere. If the children perceive the situation normally, Anna will stay with them overnight. I accepted these terms, not wanting to appear unreasonable to the court. At first, the children were not very happy, but I managed to persuade them to try it. George and Donna agreed to pick them up after school on Friday. They were supposed to bring them back to the house on Sunday afternoon after the visit. I had my doubts, but I trusted George and Donna. George even offered to take me to a bar to watch sports over a few beers on Saturday night. On Friday morning, I made sure the kids had everything they needed for the weekend. We hugged and kissed before I drove them to school, and I reminded them to call me if Mike or Karen showed up or if their mother tried to take them somewhere. I left for work after making sure they were safe inside the building. The next evening at about 5:30 p.m., George picked me up at home, and we went to the Flat Stick Pub, a popular sports bar downtown. We ordered a burger and a beer and watched the events on large monitors located along the entire wall. George brought me up to speed between snacks. Anna came today around 9 a.m., he said. It was a little tense at first, but then everything calmed down a little. The kids weren't happy with her, and they made it clear to her. But she confessed. This surprised me. This surprises me too, I said. She says she still loves you, I have a feeling she's going to try to reconcile, George said. Are you ready to consider this? I'm afraid not, George, I said. After 8 years of lies and deception, no. I can understand that. Did you really burn her wedding dress? It cost me over $2,000 when you got married, George said. It seemed right at the time, I said. She told us that her lawyer looked at the private investigator's report and read her the riot act, George said. I think she's starting to see things from your point of view. Too little, too late, I said. George nodded his head and took a sip of his beer. We heard a noise behind me, and as I turned around, I felt something hit my head, and I saw stars. I fell to the floor and saw a foot approaching my head. I was stunned, but managed to avoid being hit. I'll kill you, you son of a bitch, I heard Mike shout. I looked up and saw him standing over me and decided it was now or never. Remembering the techniques my father had taught me years ago, I raised my leg and kicked Mike in the groin as hard as I could. He screamed and fell back, hitting his head on the corner of the table next to us. He fell to the floor, and I got on top of him as quickly as possible. I kneed him in the groin a few more times, then started hitting him in the face with my fists, right, left, then right again, swing, hit, repeat. There was no technique or fancy martial arts moves involved. It was blind, seething rage and the desire to kill the bastard who destroyed my marriage and happy family. Mike didn't move while I hit him in the face, and it didn't dawn on me that he was already unconscious. I felt 2 pairs of hands trying to lift me off of Mike, and I realized that they belonged to George and another man. I remember howling something before I lost consciousness. Although it seemed like an eternity had passed, in fact, as I learned later, the contraction lasted less than a minute. I woke up in a hospital bed and saw a doctor examining me, shining a light in my eyes. My right arm was bandaged and my left arm and forearm were in a cast. There was also an IV in my arm. My head hurt so bad it was throbbing. I think he'll be fine, the doctor said. He'll have a bad headache for a while, but I don't see any signs of a concussion. We'll give him something to ease the pain and let him rest for a while before we send him home. Thank you, doctor, I heard George say. Confused, I looked at him. He smiled, looking at me. Did you hear, son? You will live. I know you're hurting, but you need to see the other guy. I heard that he has problems with his reproductive organs. He lost several teeth and almost lost an eyeball. Looks like you broke a knuckle in his jaw. I take it was Mike, I said, grimacing. How long have I been here? Night. It's 8:30 Sunday morning, George said. By the way, there are a couple of very big policemen there who want to talk to you. Are you ready? Yes, this needs to end, I said. George waved to the officers and they entered the room. Mr. Jackson, I'm Sergeant Smith and this is Officer Jones. We're the ones who responded to your argument at the Flat Stick Pub last night. How are you feeling this morning, sir? He asked. It's like I've been hit on the head, I told him. Smith smiled and turned to his notes. What can you tell us about last night? He asked. Not very much, I said. I was eating a hamburger and beer with my father-in-law, and the next thing I knew, I got hit in the head. The guy threatened to kill me, so I defended myself. Smith nodded his head. That's almost exactly what the witnesses said, Smith said, looking at his notes. And surveillance video confirms this. Do you know the person who attacked you? Yes, Sergeant. His name is Mike Harris. I sued him and he's in my divorce, I said. Divorce? Asked the sergeant. Yes, I said. Okay, he said, writing in his notebook. I assume you want to press charges. Yes, I want to, I told him. We also have a restraining order against him. Okay, he said. Well, check it out, and we'll leave it at that, Mr. Jackson. Someone might want to talk to you later, so I'll ask you to stay in town for a while. No problem, Sergeant, I said, raising my hands. He smiled, nodding his head, then they left my room. After they left, Donna, Anna, and the children came into the room. What is she doing here? I asked, looking at Anna. My restraining order doesn't go into effect until noon, Anna said. I thought you would be with your boyfriend, I said. She looked at the floor in embarrassment. I wanted to see you first, she said. Besides, Karen is with him and he is still in the process of treatment. I nodded my head and the children approached me from both sides. Jack had tears in his eyes. Are you going to be okay, Dad? He asked. I'll be fine, honey, I said. I heard you kicked Mike's ass last night, Aaron said with a smile. I heard that too, I said, looking at George. But there's nothing to be proud of here. Do you hear what I'm telling you? I hear you, Dad, Aaron said. Are you going to be okay, John? Anna asked. Yes, he'll be fine, Jack told her mother. We'll take care of him, right, Aaron? Yes, we will take care, said my son. Anna looked at our 2 teenage children before speaking. If you guys don't mind, I'd like to talk to your father for a few minutes alone, she said. They looked at her for a moment and then nodded their heads. Okay, Jack said, but we'll be right outside the door. Come on, Aaron, he added, extending his hand to his brother. They left the room, followed by George and Donna. John, Anna began after they left, I can't tell you how much I regret everything. Well, as I told Karen last Saturday, sorry isn't everything, I said. You lied and cheated on me for 8 years, and you think sorry is supposed to make it all go away or something? Have I really been such a bad husband for you? All I ever did was love you and support you. I don't understand. You are, the best husband and father a woman could wish for, she said sadly. But even that wasn't good enough for you, was it? That's not true at all, she said. Isn't it? To me, that's what it looks like, I said. You don't understand, she said. Then try to explain it to me, I said. At first, it was just a way to get a job, she said. Mike said that sex with me was one of the conditions for getting this position. This is sexual harassment, I said. This is illegal. Why didn't you come to me first? We could do something about it. Oh, I get it. You really wanted this job so much that you thought sex with Mike was a small price to pay, even if it destroys our family. Basically, I made a deal with the devil, she said. And now you're going to blame the devil, I asked. Give me a break. The truth is that you wanted this job so badly that you were willing to sleep with him for it, even if it costs you everything. What were you saying there? It's just business. Tell me, Anna, how does the destruction of our family fit into your profit and loss chart? I would like to know why you continued to do this after you supposedly retired. It was on my conscience, she said. I guess I got to the point where I decided I could have my cake and eat it too. You have feelings for him, don't you? That's why you kept doing it. How long did you plan to continue for the rest of your life? Did you really think that I would never ever know? Or did you think that when I found out I would just walk away and let you continue? And remember, I know a lot more than you think, I said. Yes, I have feelings for him, she said. It was hard not to after all these years. I thought you loved me enough to let me do this. I tried my best not to let it take anything away from you. Are you kidding? I asked incredulously. Every second you spent in bed with him was a second taken from us. Of course, you remember the definition of the term opportunity cost loss of potential benefits from other alternatives when one alternative is chosen. You chose him over your family. As a result, you lost your family. But I still love you, she said. I never stopped loving you. But you have lost respect for me, I said. She looked at me shocked. No, never, she said. Yes, you have, I said. That's why you told him that you would have sex with him for the rest of your life and said that if you divorce, you will threaten to take everything from me. Her eyes widened. Did you hear that? She asked. Yes, and even more, I said. For example, you told Mike that you would rather spend time with him than with your own son on his birthday. What kind of mother does this? What kind of signal do you think this sends to an impressionable teenager? Have you even thought about Jack or Aaron when you missed his birthday last year? She recoiled. I guess I'm just a lousy wife and mother, she said quietly. Your words, not mine. But if the shoes fit, I said with a shrug. By the way, I'm sure your lover's friend will breathe a sigh of relief when he learns that I can't sue him for alimony. And yes, I took a DNA test and the children are mine. She looked at me, shocked. Oh my God. Did you really think I would do this to you? She asked. Well, you lied to me for 8 years, I said. You've been plotting and deceiving me all this time, hiding your affair from me. What would you think? You might find it easier to hear that I didn't learn anything from you too. You may not know this, but Mike loves to play on the field. You're not the only one he sleeps with. I suspected but didn't know for sure. What do you want me to do now? She asked. Sign the papers, Anna. Put an end to this sham marriage. Then seek help and get yourself in order for the sake of the children, I said. I suspect you will have plenty of time. I think Mike will probably be a guest of the state for some time. Perhaps you are right, she said. Okay, I'll sign the papers. Forgive me, John, for all I've said. Thank you for letting me be with the kids this weekend, she said. You're welcome, I said. I know you don't believe me, but I love you, she said. And I would like you to find in your heart a way to make sure that we stay together. You're right, I do not believe you, but thanks for telling me anyway, I said. Probably some part of me will always continue to love you, but this is not enough. I need to be able to trust my partner. And after what you did, I don't know if I can trust anyone again. She nodded her head, and tears rolled down her cheeks. I understand, she said quietly. Goodbye, John. She leaned over and kissed me on the cheek. Goodbye, Anna, I said. She turned and left the room in tears. George, Donna, and the children came in after she left. Is everything okay, son? Asked George. Yes, I answered. We talked a little. I think she finally realized how badly she screwed up. Does this mean that you and your mother will be together again? Asked Jack. I shook my head. No, honey, I said. But you guys love each other, he said. For a marriage to be strong, Jack, it takes a lot more than love, I said. You also need trust. And now I don't trust her. Someday you yourself will understand this. The doctor came, did a final examination, and released me. George took me home with the kids. Later that evening, I received a frantic call from George and Donna. Karen called them and told them that Anna tried to commit suicide by overdosing on sleeping pills and alcohol. They said Karen found her when she went to Mike's house to pick up some of his belongings. The note on her nightstand read, "I'm sorry." She almost died from an overdose, but survived and spent several days in the hospital. After being evaluated by mental health professionals, she was released into the custody of George and Donna and eventually moved in with them. She signed the divorce papers without contesting anything. Sarah told me that in 90 days I would become a free man free. Yes, exactly. Mike and Karen's lawyer quickly negotiated with us for half of what I asked for. I ended up with about $3.5 million left after Sarah subtracted her fees. I put $1 million in accounts for both kids to put them through college until they graduated and put the rest in the bank. I started planning to go on a Mediterranean cruise with them during their next summer vacation. Mike was found guilty of aggravated assault and attempted murder based on video footage taken during the attack. He was sentenced to 10 years in state prison, but will be eligible for parole in about 8.5 years. I saw Anna whenever I took the kids to George and Donna's house. Sometimes we sat and talked about different things, but I could never forget what she did. She went to a psychologist who helped her understand why she acted the way she did, but she continued to indulge herself in the fantasy that I would take her back. I was glad she was getting help, but it was like closing the barn door after the horses had escaped. Over the next few months, she gradually restored her relationship with the children, which I was also happy about. George told me that she spends most of her time writing articles for various business blogs and has given up dating. She was upset to learn that I was taking the kids on a Mediterranean cruise without her, but she dealt with it by wishing us well. The kids often sent her text messages with pictures of places we visited. I met a wonderful woman from British Columbia, Nikki, who, like me, was going on a cruise after her divorce. She was about a year younger than Anna, had shoulder-length blonde hair, was quite pretty, and had a bubbly personality. I especially liked how she ended many of her sentences with, "huh." She also had 2 children, a year or so younger than mine, who spent the summer with their grandparents in northern Idaho. We spent quite a lot of time together discussing our situations and shared a bed several times. More than once I heard Jack teasing me. "Daddy has a girlfriend," he hummed, nudging me with his elbow. We exchanged contact information when the cruise ended and promised to stay in touch via email and Skype. I'm not sure if anything will come of this, but we communicate with each other on the internet at least twice a week. We adjusted to life without Anna in the house. My boss was more than happy to work with me so I could drop the kids off and pick them up at school. I knew that the time would come when Aaron was old enough to drive and he would take on this responsibility. George came into the house shortly after we returned from the cruise and told us some bad news. "They're going to put Anna in a mental hospital for a while," he said. "Why?" I asked. "Jack sent her a photo of the three of you having dinner with that Canadian girl you met on the cruise," he said. I don't think he meant it in a bad way, but Anna didn't take it very well. She lost control. Donna and I found her in the bathroom. She cut her wrists. "Oh, God," I said, "I'm sorry to hear it." I was really sorry to hear that she tried to kill herself again, but part of me felt a little justified. Now she knew at least a little how I felt when I first found out about her and Mike. Yes, me too. Luckily, she messed it up and managed to survive. But doctors said that with her history, she needed constant care and monitoring, George said. Donna and I are too old to watch her 24 hours a day. Therefore, they decided to admit her to the hospital. "For how long?" I asked. "It's hard to say, son," he said. "Maybe for several years, maybe forever. I just don't know." "Let me know if we can do anything," I said. "Thank you, son. I appreciate it," he said. Nikki and I continued our long-distance relationship, and I found that the more we talked, the closer I felt to her. I also found myself fantasizing about her a lot. She was sad to hear about Anna, mainly because of the impact it had on George, Donna, and the children, but she shared my feelings. The last time we spoke, she mentioned that she was coming to visit us with her children. She also invited me to take the kids to her home, a 2-story log house on 50 wooded acres north of Kamloops that she said was built in the late 1800s. I've never been north of the U.S. border before, so this was interesting. Who knows what will happen, if anything happens at all? Anyway, I'll save that for another story. Thanks for watching this incredible journey of betrayal and resilience. If you found this story gripping, make sure to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss our next shocking tale. Share your thoughts in the comments below and stay tuned for more unbelievable stories. Until next time, stay strong and take care. Don't get the idea that they were standoffish or anything. Once they were in their teens, they dated boys all the time. The only problem was that they only double-dated. If a guy fancied one of them, he not only had to get her attention, he had to find a suitable date for the other one. I must admit, I liked the look of both of them, but I never did get to know either of them well. I couldn't be bothered to play this silly double-date game. A guy would be running around for weeks trying to find a suitable candidate that the girls would find acceptable to make up the foursome. I learned at a young age that the girls could be choosy when they wanted to be, and from what I heard, the girls wanted to be. It was probably all a game to them anyway. The problem never came up for me, really, because when I was 17, my old man talked my Uncle Sam into taking me as an apprentice plumber. That was my old man all over. Get yourself an apprenticeship, boy. You'll have a job for life. The only problem with that darn apprenticeship was that I had to go and live with my Uncle Sam and Aunt Mary in Greenville. Greenville, the big city and bright lights. We lived in the suburbs. And most of my Uncle Sam's and my work was out in the suburbs as well. I had one day and one evening a week at a technical college, also in the suburbs. Uncle Sam wanted blood for his money, so by the time I got home at night I was so knackered traveling up into town wasn't an option. Add to that, Uncle Sam was a workaholic correction. He was under the impression I was a workaholic. He always had little jobs lined up for the weekends. You missed a day's work during the week to go to college. You can make it up on the weekends, boy. So my planned monthly weekend trips home soon became bi-monthly. You get the idea. I got home 3 times the first year and besides Christmas, once the second year. By the end of the 3rd year, my dog had started growling at the stranger when I walked in the door of my parents' home, and there was a lodger sleeping in my room. I had to share my little brother's room. Apprenticeship over, I decided I'd had enough of working for Uncle Sam. I really don't think he was too pleased when I took my leave. Bollocks to him. The old bugger had got his money's worth out of me. Home wasn't home anymore for me, if you get my drift. I'd managed to save a lot of the meager salary Uncle Sam had paid me over the years, so I had enough in the bank to allow me to put a security deposit down and rent a little flat of my own back in my hometown. Work wasn't a problem either. I had my papers, and I was soon on the books of one of the local firms. The work was hard, but at least the money was spectacular after what Uncle Sam had been paying me. Plumbers who really knew what they were doing were not exactly rare, but were a bit thin on the ground back then. Well, young ones were. Before I realized what was happening, I was working on a site of about 50 new houses. Once that site was finished, I was offered a job by a smaller builder on a barn conversion. It was a small job, only about 6 of us on the site, and the owner was around most days. The boss and I were studying the plans one day over a cup of tea, and I just happened to mention that the way the architect had planned things, there was going to be a great blank area of wall on the front of the building. I just said that if it was my place, I'd make some changes that I thought would make the place look better. The boss pushed the artist's impression drawing of the finished house at me and said, "Show me." So I roughly sketched in the changes I thought would be improvements. Later that day, I was called into the little shed we were using as a site office. There I found the boss, the owner of the house, and the architect. After some strong words were exchanged between the architect and the owner, my changes were added to the plan. It was on the day we handed the newly converted house over that the architect came over to me. "Son, you're in the wrong business. You should have been an architect or a designer at least. You've got an eye for design." A couple of weeks later, I signed up for a part-time college course learning to be an architect. I still worked on the building sites to earn the money to support my studies, but I was heading into the design side of the business. It was in the college library that I first saw her. I just sat down at one of the large tables to look up some references in a book when a young lady on the other side of the table looked up from the book she was reading, and our eyes met. She gave me a wonderful smile and returned to reading her book. The face was familiar, but I couldn't place it. I kind of sat there confused and stared at her. Well, she was a very good-looking young woman. Some minutes later, she looked over at me again. I quickly looked down at the book I was studying, trying to pretend I hadn't been staring at her. Out of the corner of my eye, I was aware of her getting up from the table and walking around it until she was standing beside me. Embarrassed that she'd seen me watching her, I didn't raise my head and pretended to be lost in the book before me. The young lady reached out and rotated my book through 180 degrees. "You'll find it easier to read, Tom, if it is the right way up." I looked up at her. "You don't recognize me, do you, Tom? Amy Hinton. You've changed some. Do I take that as a compliment?" "Of course you do." "But where's Carla?" I added, looking around. "Carla's in the States, doing an internship. We're both supposed to be on a gap year from uni. We got placements together in the States for the year, but mine fell through and Carla went on her own. You two do everything together." "Well, normally we do, but it was too good an opportunity for her to pass up." "When did she go?" "About a month or so back. I thought I'd spend a year brushing up my Spanish, so I signed on here." Amy, or Ames, as she had always been known at school, and I talked for a while until the librarian came over and told us to be quiet. Then we adjourned to the refectory. By the time she had to go to her class, we made a date for that evening. Well, kind of. I was driving her home from college in my van that night. As I was doing some private work on the side, I'd bought myself an old van to carry all my gear around in. I did wonder what her folks thought when my tatty old van with ladders on the top pulled up outside their upmarket house that evening. Ames and I sat in the van for some time, chatting about school days and the like. In the end, I asked her to go out with me the following evening. It could be that I should have picked up something in her reply with hindsight. I think I should have. "That would be nice, Tom. I haven't been out since Carla went away." I arrived at her house about 7:30 that Friday evening. The door was opened by her father, who looked me over like I was something the cat had dragged in. The expression on his face when he looked at my van was something I can't describe. I was shown into the lounge where Amos's mother and her younger sister were sitting to wait until Ames was ready. Amos's mother was very pleasant, and so was her sister. I remembered Amos's sister Lily from school. To be honest, I think I got the old swooning looks from her. It struck me that Amos's father didn't like me. This is not an uncommon attitude for a father to take. After all, he was young once and knew how most young guys' minds worked. Standard fatherly protective behavior, if you ask me. When Ames entered the room, my jaw dropped. Remember, I'd known Ames since she was a little kid. The day before, I was struck by her pleasant face and nice figure, but there was no way that I was prepared for the woman that walked into the lounge that evening. Was it Bobby V who sang poetry in motion? Well, there it was, standing before me. I think my heart stopped beating for a moment. Well, I definitely remember I found that speech was impossible for quite some time. That evening, we went to a local night spot. Nothing flashy, just a pub that had live music and a dance floor of sorts. Although we did dance a few times, Ames and I spent most of the evening talking. Don't ask me what we talked about because I haven't got the slightest recollection. I can just tell you that whenever we got together, we were talking most of the time. No matter what the subject, we appeared to agree on just about everything. That is, except for Carla. I had no interest in Carla at all, although I feigned interest to keep Ames happy. It was clear to me that she had been missing her almost lifelong companion, and I suppose it was really understandable. I just wished I'd understood at the time that Carla was the other train I was talking about hiding in that tunnel. Well, that first date and the little kiss I got at the end of it led to a second and third date following in quick succession. By the end of the month, Amy and I had become an item. When we weren't at college or working, we were together. I would find Ames waiting by my van when I came out of my evening college classes, and on the days I was at college, she would meet me for lunch. To be honest, I was besotted with her. And from what she said and how she behaved, I thought she was besotted with me. Ames joined me in my bed for the first time after we'd been together about 3 months. For some reason, she couldn't use the pill, so we had to resort to other means of protection against her becoming pregnant. I've got to say it kind of took the edge off the moment and spoiled the mood a little. Consequently, we didn't get to actual intercourse very often. We found other ways to satisfy our desires. I knew that Ames was writing to and receiving letters from Carla all the time, but I didn't know the effect they were having on our relationship. Amos's sexual, how can I put it? Amos's sexual preferences and what she wanted or was willing to try out slowly changed over time. I don't know why it didn't strike me as strange at the time. When we first got in bed together in early December, Ames wanted nothing to do with oral sex. But around February, Ames suddenly wanted to try it. For someone who thought giving head was dirty, she soon turned into an enthusiastic expert, and where she had refused to let me go down on her, she was then begging me not to stop. After some time, Ames started talking about getting engaged. No, that's silly. We both had been talking about it for some time, but it was around that time we started talking seriously about getting engaged and getting married. I bought her a ring in late July, and we planned to get married right after she took her finals at university the following summer. Amos's mother was over the moon at our plan. Her father wasn't as enthusiastic. I think he thought his daughter could do better than a darn plumber, as I heard him say on more than one occasion when he thought I was out of earshot. Lily told me straight she wanted me to drop Ames and marry her instead. It was early August when Carla returned from the States. She had her American boyfriend in tow, and I've got to say, I didn't like the guy from the start. To my mind, he was everything that I didn't like in Yanks all rolled into one. He was a brash fool who was forever bragging about himself and how clever he was. Now, don't get the idea that I don't like Americans. I've got some good friends from over the water. There was an American air base near our town, and I'd grown up with a lot of American friends. My first proper girlfriend that I'd had while still at school had come from Chicago. No, like all nationalities, among them are the ones that give all a bad name. George Green was one of those. While he was in the country, he stayed at Carla's parents' house. Of course, there was no way that the Browns were going to let him and Carla share a bed, as they had apparently been doing while Carla was over there in America. Carla and George had only been in the country a couple of days, and I hadn't met either of them yet. I came home from work one evening to find Ames sitting in the kitchen of my flat. She had had her own key for some time. There were 3 coffee cups on the table, which I gave a cursory glance to as I took Ames into my arms and kissed her. I told her I wouldn't be a couple of minutes changing and then we'd go out and eat. "You can't go in there yet," Ames blurted out. I looked at her. "Carla and George are using our bed." "Like heck they are." A very apt statement on my part, actually. But I'm one of those people who believe in the old adage an Englishman's home is his castle. And in my home, the most personal item of furniture is my bed. This probably goes back to me returning to my parents' house from Uncle Sam's and finding a lodger sleeping in my bed. I think they must have heard my outburst, which I won't repeat here, because it was only a couple of minutes later that Carla and George entered the kitchen, still in the throes of getting dressed. For all their apologies, they didn't change the sheets or even make the bed. Ames assured me that they didn't ask her permission to use my bed. We were so close by then that everything was referred to as ours. From the way George and Carla behaved, I've always believed Ames on that one. They acted as if they were the most important people in the world. While George was in the country, the 4 of us hung around together, although Carla borrowed her father's car most of the time, as there were only 3 seats in the front of my van. Not that Carla wanted to lower herself to ride in it anyway. I steadfastly refused to ride in Carla's father's car because once they were away from her house, George was doing the driving. Ames always rode with me. I've got to say that it was with some sick amusement that I watched him drive out of a pub car park one evening straight into the front of a bus. I was sounding my horn, and I think that was why the bus driver managed to bring the bus to a standstill before George drove into it, so there wasn't too much damage. George had tried to drive along the wrong side of the road, a common mistake for foreigners to make. As I had surmised, George was not insured to drive the car and wasn't in possession of an international license, although the police appeared happy to accept his American license. Once Carla's father arrived at the scene, I took Ames home. I don't know what ramifications there were to the incident. George flew home the following weekend. September was on us before we really knew what was happening. Suddenly, my tatty old van took on a new significance. Both Carla and Ames had to get all of their gear to the flat they were sharing at uni. Suddenly, Carla was quite happy to travel in my van, once all her junk was staked in the back, along with Ames. Carla was on the not-favorite daughter list with her father after he discovered his new Saab buried in the front of that bus, so he hadn't volunteered to drive her up. All too soon, the girls were gone. Not that I cared a toss about Carla being away again, but I was soon missing Ames. Hey, I wasn't the only one missing her. In all the time we'd been going out together, I'd been invited to Ames' house for a meal once, and I really think that was only because I needed to ask her father for her hand in marriage officially. The week after the girls left, Ames' mother called me and invited me to Sunday lunch. As I've said, I appeared to get on just fine with Ames' mother and her sister, who was still following me around like a puppy. Now, Ames' father started calling me son and even asked me to join him in a round of golf. Not one of my sports, but I could see I was going to have to take it up after Ames and I were married. Got to keep the in-laws happy, I figured. There was a little bit of an ulterior motive in these invitations to meals. On the weekends when Ames came home every month to visit, we would spend a lot of time at her parents' house. Now that I was a regular and apparently welcome visitor there, once a month I drove up to spend the weekend with Ames. Although that wasn't how it usually worked out. Most of the time, Carla was with us, and her main topic of conversation was George and how she was going back to the States to marry him when she had her degree. Carla also had the infuriating habit of coming home with Ames as well. She slept at her parents' house but appeared to spend most of her time at Ames' parents' place. Well, let's be precise, she spent most of her time wherever Ames was. That included the little time Ames spent at my flat. By the time Christmas came around, plans for our marriage were in full swing. Let's be fair, Ames' mother was just about organizing everything along with Lily, that is. I think Ames and I were just agreeing to everything that they wanted to do. Hey, I wasn't paying, it was Ames' old man who was footing the bill. I would just say, "Are you all right with this, Frank?" He'd nod and say, "Wait till it's your turn, son. Take my advice and only have boys." I suppose he wasn't a bad old stick, really. As far as Lily was concerned, this marriage was only a rehearsal for what she termed the big one. Frank would look at me and raise his eyebrows when she said that. Well, everything was going along just great until just after Easter when Carla got the darn dear Jane letter. You know what I mean? George dumped her for some other girl. I told you he was a jerk. Carla wasn't my favorite person, but I saw that letter. He was an insensitive jerk, as they say over there. It was a few weeks later that Ames first said she wanted to put back the wedding. Carla was originally getting married a couple of weeks before us. Now Ames wanted to put our wedding back a month or so because Carla was upset. The girls graduated and moved back home. My van again. They both got jobs pretty quickly. Nothing special in local banks. Oh, different banks. I was, of course, still juggling college and work, although I was working on my own a lot more. I even had a couple of blokes working for me on occasion. I would generally see Ames most days to start with, but as time went on, she took to going out with Carla first one night a week and then two. Then suddenly she stopped meeting me after my night classes, so now she was with Carla 3 nights a week. Not that anything untoward was going on. I was too well known in town for anyone to get clever with my girl, and that was what Ames was known as by then. Okay, the month or so the wedding was put back became until after Christmas. As Christmas approached, Ames wanted to put it back further until Easter. Now, up until that point, I'd been patient. I realized that Carla was her friend, but it seemed to me that we were going to have to wait until Carla found her another mug before Ames was going to walk up the aisle with me. It all came to a head in early December. I arrived at Ames' house to pick her up around 7:30. Ames and Carla were car-sharing, going to work. That night, neither had come home yet. Ames hadn't called me to put me off, and neither had called home to tell their parents of any change of plan. I was not a happy bunny and went looking for Ames' car. It wasn't hard to find, as our town isn't very big. I found it in the car park of one of the pubs on the outskirts of town. Inside, I discovered Ames and Carla sitting there with some guy. They were so enthralled with the line of crap he was throwing Carla that they didn't notice me enter. I bought a drink and positioned myself on the other side of the room. I sat watching as a meal arrived for them, and they all sat and ate it. I did note that Ames was drinking only non-alcoholic drinks. It was gone 9 before they got up to leave. Both girls were apparently still enthralled with everything that came out of the guy's mouth. Jesus, talk about a line of crap. The wanker wouldn't know one end of a gun from the other. They must have got right out to her car before Ames spotted my van parked alongside it. She came dashing back in and looked around for me. I was at that time in conversation with a couple of guys I knew. "Tom, how long have you been here?" Ames asked as she came up to my table, followed by Carla and the wanker. "Since about 8:00. My fiancée CE stood me up this evening, so I thought I'd have a quiet drink by myself. Why didn't you come over and join us? You must have seen us sitting there." "Oh, I did, don't you worry. But you didn't really want me along, did you? If you had, you would have called and invited me to join the party, wouldn't you? What was it? Does the flashy little git fancy a threesome or something? How can you say such a thing?" Rodney invited Carla out this evening, and Carla didn't want to go on her own as she doesn't know him that well. "Well, why no phone call to me or even your mother?" "I forgot, that's all." "Well, I forgot to tell you I was here." "Okay, now you better drive your friends home. They appear to be waiting for you, and make sure you drop the arsehole off first. I wouldn't trust that little bullshitter as far as I could throw him." "Who are you calling a bullshitter?" the guy demanded. You slimy little git." The pantomime began. Yes, I was childishly taking my frustrations out on the little git, but he really should have kept his mouth shut. If he had, he could well have got out of it with some dignity. Anyway, he had been telling the girls how much of a tough guy he was all evening. Anyone in the SAS can handle themselves, even the clerks. Once we took the argument out in the car park and there wasn't an audience anymore, he wasn't so brave. As a matter of fact, he did a runner after trying to slam the pub's door in my face. The automatic gas closer prevented that. "Did you have to do that?" "Carla liked him," Ames demanded. "I didn't do anything, Ames." The little tosspot talked himself into a corner and then into a fight that he didn't hang around to have. All I did was get stood up by my fiancée and went out for a quiet drink to drown my sorrows. Good night. I returned to the bar to finish my pint. Ames came back inside for no more than a minute or so. She and Carla had a whispered conversation, and then they left. Well, the train was blowing its whistle as it came roaring out of that tunnel. The following evening, I didn't go round to Ames' house at the usual time to pick her up. At 8:30, she let herself in the door of my flat. "What's up with you? Why didn't you pick me up? We were supposed to be going to see that film this evening. Oh, I forgot. Don't talk rubbish. This is about last night, isn't it?" "Not exactly. This is about you and me and your friendship with Carla. What has Carla got to do with it?" "Everything. If Carla weren't around, we'd be married by now. But for some reason, you've decided not to marry me until Carla finds some mug to marry her. Well, I'm not waiting anymore. The wedding goes off in February, or there's not going to be a wedding. Secondly, you will see Carla just 2 nights a week from now on, the 2 evenings that I'm at college. You can't make demands like that." "Oh, but I can. I'm supposed to be the guy you want to spend the rest of your life with, but you worry more about Carla than you do about me. Now, I suggest you go home and think about what you really want. You can bring me my answer tomorrow night. I'll be here until, shall we say, 9? But Carla and I are going to that rock concert tomorrow night. It's Carla's favorite group. She'll be really upset to miss them, and I know she won't go alone. I won't have time to come here before we go. Then I have my answer already. It's your choice, Ames, Carla, or me. Think about it if you will. If you're not here tomorrow evening before 9, everything's off. You can either keep or sell the ring. I wouldn't want it in my flat. It would have too many bad memories." Ames tried to talk me around, but I refused to listen to her. To be honest, I was tired of being a fish on the line. Either we got married or I would have to cut my losses. As I expected, Ames tried to circumvent things. My phone was ringing when I got home from work. Caller ID told me it was from Ames' house. I ignored it. It rang at regular intervals until 6, when she was due to leave for the concert. 6:10, it rang again. The caller ID told me it was from Carla's parents' house. The phone rang a couple more times a little later. I assumed from call boxes, as the ID was withheld. Call boxes in the local theater are set up like that. At 9, I left the flat and went over to a friend's flat from where I could watch mine. Brian's a nice old boy who had really become like a surrogate father to me. I'm afraid that letting my bedroom to a lodger without even asking or telling me first had almost completely destroyed my relationship with my father and family. It was gone 12 when Ames' car pulled into the car park. Ames got out, followed by Carla and the guy from the previous evening. Ames went up to my flat, which was all in darkness. The other 2 waited by the car. She let herself in, and I watched lights going on and off as she searched the flat for me. Ames went back down to her car where she talked with the other 2 for a while. Then Carla and the guy got into Ames' car and drove off. Ames then returned to the flat. I made myself comfortable on Brian's sofa. He did suggest I go home and talk it out with Ames, but I figured she made her decision at 6. I wasn't prepared to play second fiddle to Carla in Ames' affections, no matter what it cost me. Brian could see the car park from his bedroom, and he came out to tell me that Ames' car had returned about half an hour later. I went back into his kitchen and watched Carla go up and into the flat. Ames obviously wanted some moral support. By 8:30 in the morning, neither girl had left the flat. Actually, I'd painted myself into a bit of a corner. There was no way I could get out of Brian's flat without them seeing me. Now, I know I was playing silly games, but I wanted them to be wondering where I was. It was obvious that neither girl was going to work that day. They were planning on waiting me out. After all, I'd have to put in an appearance to get my van. Well, that's how I think their minds were working. The masterstroke I came up with to get past that one was to call a guy who was working for me. I had him come around and drive my van to the site where we were supposed to be working that day. It worked like a dream. It was only when the old van's engine started that the girls realized what was going on. They came running down the stairs and jumped into Ames' car, then set off in hot pursuit of the van. I suppose they thought I was driving it. I went down and got into my car. Now that was something they didn't know about. I'd finally bought the car that Ames and I were supposed to be going on honeymoon in. I drove it over to the house I'd bought another secret from Ames. This was the house I thought we were going to start our married life in. At that moment in time, it looked like a building site as the guys hadn't finished yet. Well, I kept putting the date back every time the wedding date went back. There wasn't much to finish, so I got stuck in there for the day and slept there that night. The following day was a college day for me, and I couldn't miss it. Although the building work was coming along just great and I was earning extremely well, I still had designs on becoming an architect. Having the car that Ames didn't know about was my saving grace that day. Several times I spotted both girls around the college, but they didn't see me or even know I was there. I've got to say that at this juncture, if Ames had been alone, I most probably would have spoken to her. Possibly we could have sorted things out, but I somehow doubt it. Carla's presence prevented me from going to Ames. That evening I called the flat. Brian had just called me and told me that Carla had left Ames there alone. "Tom, where are you?" "That's none of your business, Ames." "Tom, I'm sorry, but I couldn't let Carla go to that concert alone." "But she wouldn't have been alone, would she, Ames? She had that guy with her. Or was he with you? His Carla's boyfriend, you know that. I'm your girl. You were at one time, Ames, but you're not anymore. Tell me, did you tell your mother to go ahead with the February wedding date?" "Well, no, I didn't. You were acting so strange the other night. You're the one who's acting strange. I told you last night was your chance to decide whom you wanted to be with, Carla or me. You chose Carla. It's over between us. There's nothing left to say. But I couldn't leave my friend on her own." "Why not? She left you on your own when she went to the States, didn't she? Do you think she cared about you when she was planning to marry that jerk she met over there? Ames, I'm not playing second fiddle to Carla for the rest of my life. It's over. The engagement is off, the wedding is off, and you are out of my life. Goodbye, and please leave that flat tidy. I don't live there anymore, as you've no doubt noticed by now." "Where are you living, Tom?" "In the house I had bought for our wedding present, but you chose not to live here with me. Goodbye, Ames. I hope you find what you were looking for." With that, I hung up the phone. It was the following evening that Ames' father and mother paid me a call. Of course, they knew about the house. I discussed almost everything with them. In my opinion, my relationship with Ames' father had always been tenuous, to say the least. So I thought that telling them about the house was a wise thing to do. They had kept my secrets from Ames. Both the car and the house were supposed to have been my wedding surprises for her. I was surprised that they actually understood my position. It became apparent to me that although I didn't think I would have been Ames' father's first choice for a son-in-law, they actually hoped that Ames' affection for me would separate her from Carla. As it turned out, that didn't happen. It was a very sad parting that evening, and they wished me the best. I gather they never told Ames they knew about the house, where it was, or that they had come to see me. They told me straight out that they felt they wouldn't ask me to change my mind and take Ames back. They had hoped Ames' love for me would break the hold Carla seemed to have over her, but now they had come to believe Ames would always be under Carla's influence. Ames did try to speak to me whenever she saw me for the next few months. The trouble was she was always in Carla's company when she did see me. I had no intention of talking to her in that girl's presence. I also gathered she was still telling people that we were engaged. There she ran into a problem. I had moved on with my life, or to put it more truthfully, I was trying to move on, and I was not finding it easy. I had started dating other girls more than anything to try and take my mind off Ames. I must add, not very successfully. However, one of the girls I had gone out with, who apparently had designs on making it a permanent arrangement, just happened to overhear Ames tell someone else that we were still engaged. From what I heard, that encounter apparently resulted in a real catfight. But after that, I never heard any more reports of Ames claiming we were still engaged. Time passed, as it inevitably does. At the end of that year of college, I gave up on the idea of becoming an architect. The reason I gave everyone was that my building work had really taken off in a big way, as in truth it had. I'm not sure where my reputation for quality workmanship actually came from, but apparently I had built one. In truth, Ames had signed up for a design course that I needed to take. I saw her name on the list when I went to register for that next year. Don't ask me how she talked her way into that course, but she did. I decided not to register. I threw myself into my new and expanding business. Funny that I had started working for myself so that I could do my architect thing, as it gave me the opportunity to choose my own working hours to suit my studies. Suddenly, I was one of the most respected small builders in town and run off my feet with work. I didn't see much of Ames or Carla. Lily would turn up at my house every so often. I think she made it pretty plain that she thought she was in the running for becoming Ames' replacement in my heart. Looking back, I think I did love Lily, but as I would a sister, not as a prospective life partner. So I told her that would never happen. At the time, I knew I liked the girl and felt a genuine affection for her, but if I had gotten emotionally involved with her, I would be forever running into Ames. That would have made life too complicated and was something I wanted to avoid. As time went on, I saw less and less of Lily. It must have been nearly 2 years after I broke up with Ames that I met up with Sharon again. She was an old friend from my school days, but whereas Ames and Carla had been a year behind me in my brother's class, Sharon had been one of my peers. We'd gotten on well together in school, and I suppose if I hadn't gone off to my Uncle Sam's, we might have gotten together sooner. Sharon was always a good laugh to be with. Well, she always had been at school. She did have a little bit of a reputation for putting out, but I had never gone after her on those grounds. Sharon was just fun to be with, especially now. Now, I'm not claiming I felt the same way about Sharon as I had done about Ames. I know I quickly grew to love Sharon, but Ames had been my first real love. Many people have told me that your first love is something different, and I have cause to agree with them. Anyway, 8 months after we got together, Sharon and I married in the local registry office. It wasn't the big affair that Ames' mother had planned for Ames and me, but it was what we wanted. Well, needed, actually. Time was always going to be a very important factor in Sharon's and my relationship. You see, it was shortly after we started going together that Sharon was diagnosed with cancer. It went into remission after she had her first batch of chemotherapy right after the wedding. But it was the sword of Damocles hanging over us. The next 5 years of my life I devoted to Sharon and building my business. Even in her condition, Sharon was always fun to be with, and she did me the honor of presenting me with 2 wonderful daughters. It was in our 5th year as man and wife that Sharon's cancer returned with a vengeance. Chemo did little this time except make Sharon feel pretty terrible. In the end, she made the decision to refuse any further treatment other than painkillers. We managed to spend another 3 years together before she finally took her leave of us. Our 2 daughters took it in their stride. Their mother had prepared them for that day from the moment they had been born. It was them who really supported me that cold January day of the funeral. It was also them who invited everyone back to the house for the wake. 6- and 7-year-olds taking charge of almost everything whilst their father wandered around in a daze, feeling sorry for himself. Sharon had done a really good job with them. My company had done a lot of renovation work for the church at a discount, as it was Sharon's church. Personally, I'm not really into the religion thing. We'd rebuilt the boundary wall after an old yew tree had died and fallen on it. The tree had been there many hundreds of years. Its demise and removal had left a few new grave plots very near the church's main door. I'd spoken to the vicar and reserved one of these newly available plots for Sharon. Sharon was a lively person, and I thought she would like having a plot near to where everything was going on. I thought she deserved that. Well, whether I believe or don't believe, it was Sharon's grave, although I suppose one day I'll be in there with her. Of course, I never mentioned it to Sharon. Of those who came back to the house, I was surprised to find Ames' father, Frank, and Lily among them. They both gave me their condolences personally. They also told me that Ames' mother was ill in hospital, or she would have been there with them. As a result of that conversation, a few days later, I called into the hospital to see her. She was actually in the same ward that Sharon had been in during her last days. I had been too preoccupied with my wife to notice her or anyone else who was in there. Luckily, Ames' mother was recovering from her illness, although I never did find out exactly what it had been. Catherine, as she now insisted I call her, while I'd been courting Ames, I'd always called her Mom or Mrs. Brown, asked me if I'd take my two girls to see her when she got home. Apparently, she'd spoken to Sharon often in her last days, and Sharon had talked about the children and me all the time. I don't suppose I'll ever know what those conversations between Sharon and Catherine were really about. I wasn't allowed to take the children into the hospital to see Catherine, as they were too young and were not her direct relatives. What stupid rules these places have. Both girls had been in there almost every day to see their mother. Catherine informed me that Ames was not living at home anymore, so there would be no chance of us accidentally running into each other. That was the only time she mentioned Ames or Amy, as she always called her, to me. So, 3 weeks later, I took my two girls to meet the people who were to become like grandparents to them, not forgetting Lily, who became a kind of surrogate auntie. As a matter of fact, Lily started turning up at my house all the time again, so often, in fact, that my neighbors thought that there was something going on between us. That is, until her boyfriend Kevin started turning up with her as well. He was a nice guy who was dying with impatience to marry Lily, but for some reason she was keeping him hanging on, much like her sister did me. They were both very helpful to me when it came to looking after the girls. I had had some thoughts of hiring a nanny, but I was trying to get by without one if I could. These were my girls. I didn't want a stranger looking after them too much. Once Kevin told me about how frustrated he was getting with Lily not making her mind up about marrying him, I had a quiet word with her and told her to think very carefully about what had happened between Ames and myself. I asked Lily why she was not grabbing a really nice guy while she had the chance. Her answer was one that I couldn't understand. You really don't know, do you? Well, I didn't have an answer for that question, but whatever. A couple of weeks later, Lily finally named the day. Kevin, apparently convinced that I talked Lily into accepting his proposal of marriage, asked me to be his best man, and I said yes. Was that a mistake? I guess he'll never really know. It stood to reason that Ames would be there. I wasn't sure how either of us was going to handle that. It was a question I chose not to worry Lily with. The day of the wedding was a beautifully sunny June day. I was standing with Kevin at the front of the church as Mendelssohn's Wedding March began to play. My two girls were Lily's bridesmaids and were being shepherded by the maid of honor, Sarah, another old school friend of ours. Sarah and I were quite good friends at school. It crossed my mind that Lily might have been trying to play matchmaker. Lily went out of her way to give me a big smile as she approached Kevin at the altar. Then she turned her attention to her husband, Toby. It was about halfway through the service that there was somewhat of a commotion at the back of the church. I cringed as I heard a loud American voice that I recognized. Then they came clumping down the side aisle to take their seats among Lily's family and friends. I tried not to look, but you know what it's like. A quick glance confirmed that it was Carla and George who had arrived late. I actually heard Lily say, "The poor girl," she'd forgotten she was wearing a radio microphone, so most of the people in the congregation must have heard her say it as well. It's a shame that some of them didn't take the hint and leave. I was curious as to why they'd been invited in the first place. The disturbance over, the service carried on to its normal conclusion. As we began parading out of the church, Catherine turned to me. God, we never thought they would have the cheek to turn up, the insensitive buggers. We thought we were safe in sending them an invite as they live in America. It was as we got near the back of the church that I saw her sitting there, flanked by a couple of other women. Ames did not look very happy, and her presence obviously surprised Catherine because Kathy's step faltered for a moment, but then she soon recovered her poise, and with a smile and little nod to Ames, she continued with the parade. Ames avoided eye contact with me, or did I avoid eye contact with her? It was obvious to me that something had happened in this family that I knew nothing about. I knew that they had never mentioned Ames to me since I'd been reunited with them, but I put that down to them being sensitive to my feelings. That, it appeared, was obviously not the case. Outside the church, we had the obligatory photo call. I noted that Ames was not in the lineup. I saw Lily motion for her to join the line a couple of times, but Ames didn't move. In the end, Lily looked over at me and gestured with her eyes and head. She didn't have to say anything. I knew what she wanted. Slipping off to one side, I circled the watching crowd until I was behind Ames. Taking her firmly by the arm, I marched her into the lineup. "Take that frown off your face and smile, woman. This is your sister's wedding," I said to her in the best form of commanding tone I could whisper. "What have I got to smile about?" Ames replied. "A darn sight more than my wife has. That was her grave you were almost standing on back there." It wasn't really, but I think that did the trick by reminding Ames that other people had worse problems than she did. "Oh my God, I'm sorry, Tom," Ames blurted out. "Well, don't be. Just remember you're alive, so you have got something to smile about." One of the ushers who was on the ball threw me a small bouquet, the same as my girls were carrying, and I pushed it into Ames' hands before I regained my position in the line. I think Ames did manage a smile, but she didn't look like the happiest girl in the world. The photo call over, I started herding people into the limousines that were taking everyone to the reception. My two girls demanded a cuddle, and I had to tell them both how wonderful and clever they had been. As they got into their car, I noted my girls no longer had their bouquets. Ames had disappeared back into the crowd again after the photo call, which was somewhat to my relief. I suppose one of the ushers must have found her a seat in one of the cars. Carla came up and said hello. I'm afraid I can't repeat what I said to her and that jerk George, and no, I wasn't in the slightest interested in how they got back together again. Before I left the church, I went over to Sharon's grave. There were 3 small bouquets of flowers lying there by then, along with the large bouquet I'd put there when it arrived. I had a quick word with her, as I always did when I was there. Funny how we do that, isn't it? I've got no belief in the afterlife, but I will stand by Sharon's grave and talk to her as if she's actually there and can hear me. At the hotel where the reception was being held, it really became obvious that Ames' presence had not been expected. After Catherine had left the welcoming line, she was dashing around rearranging the seating on the top table to fit Ames in. I helped her, but I did not think it was the time to inquire what had occurred in the family. Once the meal and the speeches were over, I thought I could relax a little. You know, when someone asks you to be his best man, you tend to say yes without thinking about everything that is involved. I know that I wasn't prepared for what Kevin said about me in his speech. He announced to all and sundry that Lily had had a crush on me for years, and he thanked me for persuading her to marry him instead. In my speech, I had to tell everyone that I'd only known the guy a few months, but my daughters had assured me he was a suitable husband for Lily. Both my girls liked Kevin and Lily a lot. With all that out of the way, the dancing started. Lily and Kevin first, followed by the parents. Then it was my turn with the bridesmaids. Sarah was wonderful with them. We both picked up a girl each, and then we danced around in a foursome. My girls thought that was great. Then Lily and Kevin joined us. I don't think there's ever been a waltz danced like that before. I noted that Ames had chosen to sit with the girls she'd been in the church with, well away from the family table where her parents and I were sitting. Later, Lily came up and asked me to dance with her. I took the opportunity to ask her what the story was with Ames. "Not now, Tom. I'll meet you in reception in about 10 minutes and tell you all about it there. Someone might overhear us out here." I somehow doubted it, but she was the boss on her wedding day. Once we were alone in reception, she told me the whole story. Ames had apparently married that American idiot George. She told me how the guy had managed to talk Ames into moving to the States with him and then marrying him once she got there. Everything had gone okay until one day Ames came home to find George in bed with another woman. They're now in the process of getting a divorce, and Ames has moved back home. Tom, I really think she's come back expecting to take up where you two left off. But Tom, she doesn't know about Sharon and the girls. I've tried to get her to talk to me about you, but she won't. She gets very upset whenever your name is mentioned. I had a life to live, Lily. I got on with it. I know, Tom. But Ames has always been stubborn like that. She wouldn't listen to anyone. Mom says she's just going to have to work this one out for herself. I told her straight out about you and Sharon, but I don't think she believed me. Well, you did your best. I'm really sorry about that idiot George. Carla's idea? Who else? You know she tried it with me as well, but Mom and Dad saw her off. Carla had tried to set up Ames with another American idiot. That's why Mom and Dad were on her case all the time. In the end, she and George eloped and got married. Tom, I really think that was Ames' way of trying to get you out of her mind. Don't ask me why. Ames never really talks to anyone about what goes on in her mind. So the night went on. Every so often, Ames would be sitting somewhere and staring at me. Once or twice, she appeared to be on the verge of tears. I never had the opportunity to talk to her again, but in truth, I was not really looking for one either. It was well gone midnight when I finally got the girls into their beds and then headed for mine. The following morning, I got an ear bashing from the girls for not waking them up to see Lily and Kevin off on their honeymoon. Hey, I was half dead myself after all the dancing I had done the night before. My girls had the energy of youth on their side. Their dad was an old codger. God, he felt it that morning. It was the Monday evening that Ames came knocking on my door. She was alone. As I looked at her, I noticed that she had aged quite a bit. But then, I probably looked a darn sight older than I had the last time she saw me. She started to cry when my two girls came to the door to see who was there. I sent the girls off to bed and took Ames into the living room. She didn't sit down. She kind of wandered around, looking at everything. Where did all this come from? That's what Sharon and I managed to achieve in the few years we had together. I'm so sorry, Tom. I had no idea. No, you didn't. You chose to walk out of my life. Tom, you gave me an ultimatum. You made me choose between Carla and you. Ames, you're right, I did. But for one very good reason, you were my girl. I was not prepared to spend my life playing second fiddle to your friend. I wanted you to be with me, not some girl you went to school with. It was your choice to make. You don't understand. Carla needed me at that time. She was in a bad way. Ames, it was me who needed you. Your best friend had broken your heart, but I was your future husband. Carla was always going to come between us. If she had found some other idiot to marry, it might have worked. You would have been happy for her and we'd have gotten married, but if you had taken Carla's side, it would have come between us. Maybe it would have. But you didn't give me the chance to prove that it wouldn't. You went off in a huff. I went off in a huff? Jesus, Ames, do you think that is what I did? Your friend Carla has always been a self-centered fool who was only happy when everyone else was miserable. She always did everything she could to keep you under her thumb. You're still letting her do it. I know she does. But for some reason, I can't help but do what she wants. Tom, I came to ask you if you would give me another chance. No way, Ames. I'm sorry, but that's not happening. My daughters are asleep upstairs. You're my past. They are my future. I had 8 happy years with Sharon, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure those girls are happy. You were a big part of my life at one time, but now you're a part of my past. But I was your girl. I thought we were going to be together forever. So did I. But that future is gone. You're a part of my past now, and that's where you need to stay. I'm sorry, Ames, but there's no way we can go back. You made your choice, and I made mine. My life is with my girls now, and I can't let you come between us. Ames looked like she wanted to say more, but she just nodded and walked out of the door. I watched her go, feeling a strange mix of sadness and relief. I had loved her once, but that was a long time ago. My life was different now, and there was no room for Ames in it anymore. Thanks for watching. What do you think about Tom's decision to prioritize his daughters over rekindling a past relationship with Ames? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more stories of betrayal and resilience. See you next time.